sit back.
All right. All right. We are going to go ahead with our Cache County meeting. Today is January 25th, Tuesday, and the time is at 5 o'clock. I would ask all of you to turn on your microphones and speak directly into them so that everyone can hear us. We welcome everyone out in the audience here and welcome those who are joining us on YouTube. So thank you, and we'll go ahead and we'll have our opening from our Councilwoman Gina Worthen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a quote that I came across the other day I wanted to share because I thought it was really positive, and I think it describes the people of Cache Valley very well. It says, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love." And that was from Martin Luther King Jr., from a speech he gave in 1968. And I've noticed that people in our county are really good at serving and noticing when people need help, and they always step up. And I just really appreciate all that the people in our valley do, and it's a privilege to represent them. And I'd like to finish my remarks in the form of a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this beautiful valley that we live in and grateful for the many good people around us. We're thankful for the opportunity to serve as council members. We ask for thy Spirit with us today to help us make wise and good decisions in the things that we contemplate, that our decisions will be for the best of the people of this county. We thank thee for the moisture that we've received and ask that that continue, that we will have enough water for our next year. These things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilwoman. And before we continue, I just wanted to give you this card and thank you for your service from last year. And we've all had a little signature in there, so thank you. We appreciate that.
Did you make this?
Yes.
Thank you, Barbara. That makes it even extra special.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, continuing on. Have we had a chance to review and do an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, review and approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I have 4 corrections to the minutes. And I would move these corrections be made. I'll just mention them and then I'll give this paper to you, Bryson. On 12AB, there was a misunderstanding there, so I'd say strike the text on the discussion and replace it with, without objection, council moved this item to the January 25th meeting. On item 13, on council member reports, under David Erickson, CAPO is misspelled and it's CAFO with an F.
Got it.
It's kind of a tricky acronym, right? On 6A, election of the council chair, this must have been from a previous meeting somehow got in there. So strike Chairworthen introduced to council the proclamation for their approval.
Got it.
And instead I would ask to insert Chairworthen said sometimes chair served 2 years, however she's not seeking a second year, so she can focus on her responsibilities as first vice president of the Utah Association of Counties and encourage the council to vote for Barbara Tidwell. And then lastly, 6C, as I recall, and council correct me if I misremember this, but Sheriff Jensen didn't talk about the 2 new deputies.
Right.
So I would move to strike and talked about his request to create 2 new deputies and insert Sheriff Jensen postponed to a future meeting his request for 2 new deputies.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah. Well, how about this? I'll just make a motion to approve the minutes with the additions. Correct. Council, the corrections per Councilwoman Ward.
Did you
Thank you.
say on 12, sorry about that, 12, we did not discuss the goals yet, right?
Right, and so
Yeah,
I
right,
said
'cause-
to strike that text and,
Yeah, you got that changed, okay.
yeah.
All right, second, there's a motion, a second. Okay, all of it in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And just as a reminder to the audience, if you haven't signed in and you're attending here, if you'd please sign in, that'd be great. All right, we now will have a report from our county executive, Executive Zook. Oh, I'm used to looking over there.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a couple of items for you today. The first item I had on my list was the executive and council member boards and committee assignments. I understand there was a request to move that later in the agenda. Is that still desired, or would you like me to present that now?
Only if there was changes.
Okay, we were going to, Carl and I were going to look at a few changes on there, so we'll probably move that then. Do we need to redo that?
Motion to change the agenda and move item
5A.
5A to other business item as item 12F.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Barbara.
That's
I'll
okay.
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye for myself. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that
Executive, I appreciate
clarification.
that.
We'll talk about that at the end of the agenda, and I
Okay.
did not have any other appointments besides that, discussing that list, so thank you for that. The next item I had, financial reports, the December 2021 financial statement is available for review and provided. And then the last item I have is, thank you, Madam Chair, for asking me to give an update on my goals from last year and my goals for this year. And I just want to start by thanking everybody for the opportunity to serve alongside you over the past year. It's been a busy year. It was another challenging year for us here in the county with a number of challenges that have faced us and that we've faced and others around the nation have faced as well in relation to public health and finance and governmental changes. But I think our county's done an outstanding job in facing those, and we have a great team here who have done a great job. I mentioned when we went over our goals a year ago, I mentioned 5 particular areas that I wanted to focus on in my first year. And of course, before even getting to those, I had to figure out this new position that I had the opportunity to serve in. And that has included many meetings. I did an estimate. I didn't count every meeting, but it was probably close to 1,000 meetings that I've attended in the past year. And those have been one-on-one meetings, big meetings with hundreds of people and everything in between. Some of them official meetings, some of them unofficial, and some of those have been department visits, getting to know staff and our operations. And I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know our incredible team and staff members. That onboarding process for me has also included learning about our operations, our policies, who our leaders are, who our community partners are, and that's been a fun process as well, just getting to know how we do things and who does those things. So I mentioned 5 priorities that I wanted us to focus on as an organization last year, and those were public safety, roads, preserving our open spaces, ag and water, economic development, and then improving our internal county organization. And pretty quickly after starting, I realized that I needed to focus and our organization needed to focus on some social service related things. Specifically, suicide prevention was one thing that was brought to the fore, as well as homelessness. So that kind of became my 6th priority over the last year. So I'd just like to run through each of those priority areas really quickly and just mention a couple things that I think as an organization were successes and victories for us as a community or as a county organization. So public safety, our new County Fire Ambulance Service, I think, was one of our biggest successes last year when it comes to public safety. And implementing that, adding new ambulances, adding paramedics throughout the county, upgrading the skills of our EMTs, definitely a big success. We increased the pay for our deputies, which was critical to our public safety. Thank you, Council, for your support of that. Thank you also for supporting the creation of a public defender in our organization. We did some emergency management training, which most of you participated in as well. Thank you for doing that. That made us better prepared, and then we actually responded to an emergency. And then, of course, our new fire facility out in Hiram is a beautiful addition to our organization. On the roads front, this is one that I think if I had to pick which area I worked on the most last year, would probably be transportation and roads. And so we had some great successes when it came to roads and bridges, transportation trails. We secured or awarded about $72 million in road funding for projects around our county last year. A big chunk of that was $52 million that was secured for Main Street. But then the other $20 million was allocated to a variety of other projects, 18 different projects in 13 different communities ranging from Newton to Nibley. And those are good projects that will help our communities around the county. We also secured $1.4 million in trail funding, and thanks to our trail coordinator. I just want to give you an update on that while I'm talking about that. Carly came, and a couple months ago she mentioned that she had been offered another position and would be leaving us. After that, her direct supervisor, Chris, and myself had some conversations with her, and we've been able to convince her to stay. So she's going to be with us still, which is incredible because she's worth $1.4 million in 1 year. The past year, that's how much she helped us secure. Speaking of trails, one of the biggest trail projects we did was the Murray Trailhead last year. That was a great project out in the Wellsville area. And our Public Works Department worked on a number of other really important projects, including the Birch Canyon Rehabilitation Project, the Benson Bridge repairs, and starting up a dust control program. And of course, they moved into their new building. We were able to open that and do a ribbon cutting there, and it's a beautiful new facility that's working well for them. We also did had some good progress as an organization when it comes to planning. We were able to secure funding for a couple of really good planning studies related to transportation, including for 4400 South, for the Western Arterial, and for a countywide road and transportation plan. In the area of preservation of open space, ag, and water, we made a lot of progress in our general plan. You'll be seeing that come to the council for approval soon. We're almost done with that, and I just want to thank our department staff and everybody who's been part of that general plan update for all of the work they've done on that. It's a huge project and really needed. We had some preliminary discussions about starting the effort up again for an open space bond, and we're going to be continuing with that discussion this year. And then when I think about preservation of ag, I think one of our biggest successes last year was actually our Cheese and Dairy Festival, because it reminds everybody what an important part that is for our community and what an important part of our culture, our economy. And I think that's a critical piece for preserving it, is for everyone to be reminded of how important it is to us. Economic development was another thing that we had some great successes in that area. We got our new department and our new director ramped up and working on a number of important issues. And one of the things that he helped us to do was to secure a couple of grants to do a variety of programs. You know about the $200,000 grant that was secured, and then more recently he came to you for guidance on the Part B funding. We just found out that we got grant money from Part B as well. We got $42,000 to help with the workforce development piece of that. So that's a great success there. And then we were able to plan and put on an incredible economic summit this year. It was very successful. We had the Lieutenant Governor speak at that, and a great event. Organizationally is another area where we spent a lot of time this year working on improving things internally. I want to thank the council for approving a balanced budget with no tax increase. That was a great success for our organization. And I also want to thank our finance department staff for many improvements that were made to improve the transparency of our budget so that it's easier not only for the council and department heads to understand, but the public as well. We had some internal audits that I think are going to be a successful pattern for us to repeat in the future as we look at our internal operations. And we brought in some staff members. I mentioned a couple of them already, but our grant writer and our new civil attorney, I think, are some key additions that we made to our organization that are going to help us to be more efficient, more successful. And then we made a number of other changes related to technology, everything from updating our website to several software modernization improvements. And again, these are just summaries of some of the things. And then the last thing was that I mentioned as a priority area was social services. We had a couple of really successful suicide prevention events, and of course we can't go without mentioning our new Children's Justice Center, which is a very much needed addition for that department. So with that being said about some of our successes that we were able to accomplish as a team last year, I just want to talk about some of the things that I hope we can work together on this year. In those same areas of public safety, roads, preservation, economic development, internal improvements, and social services. When it comes to public safety, there are several bills going through the legislature this session that I know our sheriff is going to be working on. I'm working on some of them and going to be helping him, and hopefully we'll all be helping each other to pass some laws that will make us safer and make our residents safer this year. I particularly appreciate Senator Wilson for one of the bills that he's running at the request of the county, and that was authored by our county attorney's office related to child exploitation. I've mentioned Logan Canyon cell towers multiple times, and that is one of the top public safety priorities that I plan to be working on this year, and hope to have some success come out of our legislative session related to that. And then, of course, our sheriff is working on our animal shelter, and we're going to be meeting and talking about ramping that up and how we can get the services running and hopefully partner with most, if not all, of our cities in the valley to provide that service. Again, this year, I plan to work on transportation, on road projects, and a couple of things that we're going to be working on as an organization is finishing our internal transportation master plan, getting that up and running. And then we've got a countywide transportation master plan that's going to incorporate our plan along with the plans of all of our cities and UDOT within our valley to make sure that they're all coordinated. And that was funded by the CMPO. I also plan to work with UDOT to help them as well as Logan City to finalize the plans for Logan Main Street and then go after the rest of the money for that. We anticipate that the $52 million we got might only be half of what's needed. So once we come up with a final plan, we'll go after the rest of the funds that are needed. And then there are a couple of other big projects that we're seeking funding for as well. The north end of 10th West, we'd like to be able to widen that and make it 4 lanes like the rest of 10th West is. And then on the south end, 10th West ties into 12th West once it hits Nibley. And that corridor has some missing links and some narrow spots that we'd love to see funding come through there for Nibley, Hiram, and the county unincorporated section in between those two cities. We're going to continue to work with UDOT to try to get some progress on a couple of the projects they are doing, specifically SR 30, Valley View Highway, and the 3200 South 8991 intersection realignment and signalization. Just to give you a quick update on the SR 30 project, one of our biggest obstacles that we've been facing on the SR 30 project is the railroad not allowing us to widen the road at the crossing there. I apologize that I had to step out of the earlier part of the meeting this evening, but that was because I had a meeting with Representative Snyder, Senator Wilson, and the railroad about that specific issue. I was hoping I would come and report that they backed off and we had the ability to do that. That hasn't been the case yet, but that's something that we will continue to work on. I want to thank Representative Snyder for calling that meeting and for putting some pressure on that important issue. It's really an important public safety issue. And then the last couple of things transportation-wise that I'd like to work on over the next year are to complete all of our existing road projects that are underway and to help all of our cities, our communities that have road projects that are underway to make sure those get completed. And then I've been working with our Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization, the CMPO, on a bit of a reorg there. We've got a new executive director there, and we're ramping up the staff there so that we can be more competitive on the state level for seeking transportation dollars. As far as preservation of open space, ag and water go, I'd love to see us complete our general plan soon, and then of course we'll be carrying out the marching orders that will be contained in that. Get our open space preservation bond committee rolling and working on that issue and potentially put something on the ballot. And then love to have our agricultural preservation board up and running as well. I know that's something the council's going to work on as a priority. As far as economic development goes, we've got all of those grants and that money, so we'll be implementing those grant-funded workforce programs and other programs. I think it would also be advantageous to us from an economic development standpoint to support USU and their new veterinary school. If you haven't heard, they're pushing for a full-fledged school here at their Logan campus for the veterinarian program, and they're pushing for funding during the legislative session. That's something I've been helping them with already. And then another thing related to economic development that I think will be critical for us this year is we need to reauthorize our RAPS tax. RAPS has been, we've been through 2 10-year rounds, and we're finishing up this year our second 10-year round. We'll need to put it on the ballot this November, and the council will need to vote to do that and put it on the ballot. So I think our citizens have been very supportive of that in the past, and I hope they will be again this year. But that's, I think, a critical piece of our economy to get that reauthorized. As far as county organizational improvements go, first thing on my priority list is to hire a chief deputy county executive, and we've done a few interviews already on that process, and hope to have somebody on board soon to help out with that. We've been pretty short-staffed, and Janine and I have been stretched pretty thin, and it'll be good to have some more help. I'd love to continue with our internal audits, and one of them that I'd love to talk about is a communications audit and just look at how good of a job we do in communicating with our public. I'd also like to implement some of the audit recommendations that have already been recommended, and work with our auditor to complete some of the ones that he's currently working on. And then some other organizational things. We've talked about some property purchases that we'd like to do. I'd like to get those completed and wrapped up. And of course, county code updates. We hired a new civil attorney last year to help with that. And I think we can get a lot of good done this year in updating codes to support a number of our departments. The last thing I'll mention as far as priority areas is social services. I'd love to see us have a receiving center up here to help with mental health crises, and I'm working with Bear River Mental Health, and the legislature hopefully will see some funding for that to help Bear River Mental Health with that. In addition to that, and somewhat related, it would be a resource center that the legislature has also indicated a willingness to provide funding for, and we'll be talking to them about that tomorrow, actually. I know our senior center has talked about a need for a new and expanded space. I'd love to further develop that plan and determine whether or not that's something we would like to pursue, and if so, I'd like us to work on that and get that going. And then the last thing I'll mention on social services front is homelessness funding. A few years ago, there was a bill passed in legislature that took a portion of our sales tax from our community and sent it down to the Wasatch Front to help with homelessness services. However, we have dozens of homeless here in our community, and it would be great if we could keep those funds here so that we could use those to serve them. I was working with Representative Johnson on a bill to do that. Representative Elison has now taken on that bill, and he'll be pushing it, so hopefully we'll see some success as far as that goes. That concludes the list of reports and goals for me. But it does remind me, the last one I mentioned is homelessness. We are having a point-in-time count. If you'd like to help with our point-in-time count, we're going to be counting our homeless residents this week. And that will be early Thursday morning, early Friday morning, and early Saturday morning. Starts at 3:30 a.m. across the street at the Bragg office. If you want to wake up early and come help us count, dress warmly and show up over there, and we'll be doing that. And then I did mention suicide prevention events and those kinds of things. We are going to have those again this year, as we did last year. We've got a couple of those planned already. September 9th will be our concert. However, this week, this Thursday, we are having some training related to that over at the event center at noon and 6 p.m. If you're interested in coming to that, we'd love to have you there. That concludes my report this evening, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right, we're coming up on 5:30. JD, where are you? Okay, how long will your presentation take, JD?
I can do it in 2 minutes.
All right, come on up here. We'll be glad to have you. Thank you.
JD wins the prize.
Name that too.
So I've just got a few slides. I just wanted to kind of introduce our public community programming for this year. We've had a couple changes in our office. And don't be offended if I say beep. Can you go forward? Okay, so this is a list of our faculty in our office. We are USU faculty, professors, but luckily we don't have to teach students for credit. We get to teach the public in community-based projects. So, beep. We do have a few extra faces in our office. Dana Isabaron is our new administrative staff assistant coming to us from the University of New Mexico. She's helping us out quite a bit. We had a 4-H coordinator go on to greener pastures, and so we have Bailey Horton with us now, and I'll describe her position in a little bit more detail later. Rachel Jensen, we've noticed that a reoccurring theme with USU Extension is we're the best kept secret. And so we've hired a marketing coordinator, social media person to help get our information out a little bit better, because teaching 5 people is the same as teaching 50, and we'd rather meet the masses. Just some highlights with the horticulture program. That's where my job lies. We have 50 master gardeners signed up this year, and those students will then turn around and give community service to the different citizen groups. Executive Zook and I have talked about the Children's Justice Center, helping out with landscape issues there. We have Bridger Park Community Garden, where we have 40 to 50 different families that garden there each year. And then we're doing a lot more public classes now that COVID restrictions have lightened up a little bit. We're kind of excited. My research areas have to do with water-wise landscaping, as well as growing in high tunnels and wildflowers and native plants. Agriculture, we have Jacob Hadfield. He's been in Clark Israelson's role for a few years now, and we're really lucky to have him. He's started a new agriculture social media campaign to help reach some of the new growers and farmers in our area. He also does a mental health and first aid for farmers and farm succession planning. He's doing a lot of technical research with cover crops and interseeding topics that the local conservation district is promoting, so we're doing the research to try to back some of that. Jenna is our home and community specialist. She does a lot of canning and food preservation. She comes to us with a lot of nutrition and dietetics training. So she's already filled up a diabetes class that's happening this next month, but she's promised to do more. She's also working with Amy with HR and doing a lot of lunch and learns with county employees that we'll circle back around to as well.
Will we have the salsa thing again this year?
It's coming.
Okay.
Tim Cady, he's our resident expert on suicide prevention and opioid substance abuse. He told me earlier today he's working with over 26 different coalitions in the valley. He works a lot with Bear River Health Department, obviously, and last week was the first volunteer to man the veteran suicide hotline with the Cache Valley Veterans Association. So he's a great asset and works really hard. Our 4-H, we've actually expanded quite a bit. We did a needs assessment with a lot of our different clubs We have over 60 different 4-H clubs in the valley, and one thing that they told us is they would like a lot more access to our specialists. So Bailey is new to our area. She actually doesn't do any programming. Her whole emphasis is reaching out to the clubs and seeing what their needs are. So it's kind of new to her. She's a programmer, but she's going to take on the county fair and again help out the different clubs as they ask for help. Courtney Frieza is currently our staff assistant. We're going to actually transition her into do more coordinating with the horse and livestock programs. We told her anything that has a hoof is her priority, and she's really excited about it. Blake Clark is our state shooting specialist, but has done a lot for bringing new programs to the valley. We have a new poultry club, focuses on chickens and all the backyard birds. He also, Cache Valley totes the largest 4-H dog club, so he helps with them in shooting sports, archery, anything outdoorsy. Blake actually came to us from the Boy Scout group, so we're glad to have him. And then we have Jenny Curl that focuses down at Bridgerland Technical College, doing all the STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. She is a tornado, so if you ever talk to her, be ready to have some minutes because she's very passionate about what she does. Now, this is what I wanted to come before you all and get on your schedules. I'll work with Janine for the logistics. We are going to do the Great Tomato Giveaway with county employees again, where we will supply a tomato variety that's new and improved. And then hopefully on July 26th, we will ask for more salsa recipes, and we'll have the council do a salsa showdown once again. And we'll work specifically with Councilman Gunnell to make sure he's here this time.
Tomatoes are weapons. You throw them, you don't eat them.
Now, actually, we joked last time that he asked why we don't do a steak taste testing.
Yes.
And in March 22nd, we're going to.
Ooh.
The reason for this is actually it's part of 4-H curriculum, the different cuts of meat, and so we're going to have 4-H involved this time, contact a local grilling expert, and we're going to do different cuts of steak. So that'll be on March 22nd.
Nice.
Again, we'll get with Janine and get the details worked out, but that's just for you, Nolan.
You're forgiven on the salsa.
Now, the last slide I have is just, there's a lot of stuff going on. I am really intimidated to speak to all the different program areas in our office. It amazes me the things that get done, late hours, weekends. But these are some social media forums that you're welcome to follow. This is where we reach a lot of the public. We have the Garden Guys and Gal that I'm involved with, the Cache County 4-H, our just regular extension, Facebook and Instagram page, and then the Junior Livestock. Just thank you so much for your support. It's amazing to serve this community, and we really have the best jobs ever where that's our job, is to help the public. So, thanks.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that. We'll look forward to those events too. All right, it is 5:36, and let's go ahead and open the public hearings, or set some public hearings and look at public hearings. All right, first one on the agenda is set a public hearing for February 8th of 22 regarding resolution 2022-03, a resolution declaring the county's interest in the real property located in Lewiston, Utah, described as the portion of tax identification parcel number 14-029-0018, that is north of 2000 South Street in Lewiston, as surplus property, and approving the disposition thereof.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to set a public hearing for Resolution 2022-03. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, public hearing, ordinance -2022-01. An ordinance changing the salaries of the Cache County elected officers and members of the Cache County Council. All right. I've asked Amy Adams to give a short presentation about how this comes about and the committee that takes care of this. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to give a brief overview. Here we go, that's better. Of what the compensation committee, who is a part of that, and what the compensation committee does. So we have 4 elected officials that are on the compensation committee. David Zook is our county executive, and he is the chairman of the committee. Sheriff Chad Jensen, council chair now, Barbara Tidwell, and council member Gordon Zillis. We have 2 employee representatives. The first one is Tony Baird. He is our chief deputy county attorney. And then myself as the director of human resources. And we also have a citizen representative that is Paul James that sits on that committee. So I pulled out of the Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual in Section 7, D, under Wage and Salary Administration. It talks about the Compensation Committee and what the Compensation Committee should be doing. So there in red, it says the Director of Human Resources and the Cache County Compensation Committee shall make a combined recommendation to the county executive, which shall include a recommended wage salary adjustment for merit and market increases and a recommended benefits program. Number 2, the county executive shall consider these recommendations as department budgets are developed for the next calendar year. And then number 3 is the county council shall adopt wage, salary, and benefit plans after considering the recommendations of the Cache County Compensation Committee, the Director of Human Resources, and the county executive based on the financial and economic conditions of the county. So just wanted to keep that in mind of what the purpose of the Compensation Committee was. So some of the things that we do as the Compensation Committee is we review and compare compensation data for similar positions that we have here in the county to second and third class counties. And I'll describe what those second and third class counties are in just a few slides to help give everyone a refresher. We also review the market study information that I obtain from other government resources and third-party salary surveys. So we are not only comparing to government positions, but also professional positions throughout what are comparable to the positions that we have here. We evaluate the current pay plan and analyze the effect of the adjustments on the budget. And we do that by seeing if we need to make a market adjustment by position, and then also a merit increase recommendation that's based on performance. We also discuss our current benefits packages and evaluate other options or other offerings that may be available to make sure that we are providing our employees with the best package that we can that is also affordable to the county as well. And then we discuss compensation, benefit, and PLT or personal leave time offerings so that we can be competitive in our recruitment efforts. As we are in a very tight labor market, there's been a few things that we've needed to talk about and to make some offerings that way or have available as we're doing our recruiting. And then the recommendation from the Compensation Committee is given to the county executive and then approved by the council. So those are, that's a brief overview of what the committee does. So as you're discussing the elected official salaries today, I just wanted to give you a brief reminder of what the recommendation was given from the Compensation Committee to the executive. Let me explain this slide a little bit for some that may not have seen it before. So across the top, we have all of our elected officials there. We're comparing to the second-class counties and the third-class counties. And I've listed there at the bottom in that box the population of each of the counties in the second and the third-class counties so that we can see why we're comparing to second and third-class counties. If you look at the third-class counties, all except for Cache County, really are about less than 72,000 in population. Cache County is really the anomaly there out of the third-class counties, and this is taken from the 2020 census data. So our population in Cache County as of 2020 was 133,154. Now you can see that as we look at the second-class counties, that's not quite as big as what some of those other second-class counties are, but we're coming in close to Washington County there. And so as the Compensation Committee discussed how we would compare elected officials, we felt that it was fair to compare to second and third-class counties and see what the averages were of the pay for those elected officials, and then make our recommendation from there based off of the data that we have according to the population. So up there in each of those boxes, I won't read off of those numbers. I think all of you are able to see them. But we can see what the average is for each elected office for the second and the third class counties. And then that third row there says cash. That is what the current pay is for each elected official as of today. And then the recommendation from the Compensation Committee is 7% increase. And so you may be asking, why 7%? Why did you guys come up with that? Well, based off of a similar analysis that we do with our employees, we wanted to take the same type of analysis and compare that and put it towards our elected officials. Also, just like what I had mentioned, it's based on the population of the Cache County in relation to the other counties. And then it was also recommended, if you remember, back in the summertime, fall time, that the elected officials receive the same or similar increase that the employees would be receiving. So that is why a 7% increase has been recommended, and those are the new rates there in that dark blue line of what those rates would be. As we look at those, though, we can see that most of them are falling right in the middle between the second and the third class county wages, those averages, with what these new salaries would be, all except for the executive and the council. And so we wanted to take a deeper dive into each one of those. However, as we did that, Executive Zook decided that he did not want a deeper dive gone into the executive salary, that he wanted to be considered with the other elected officials there at the 7%. So with the council, we took a deeper dive to look and see what's going on. Now, here on the right, we have the county comparisons. These are all of the third-class counties. There are not councils in second-class counties, so there's not even a comparison to look at because all of the second-class counties have a commission-type government. So there in red, we have Summit and Tooele. Those are the two counties out of all of the third-class counties that function in a similar form of government that we do here in Cache County. And they are also as a part-time council. So Summit County pays their part-time council members annually $45,475, and Tooele pays their part-time council $24,000 annually. So as we look there to the left, if we take the average of both of those together, that's $34,737. And our cash council currently is making $13,332, with the chair making $15,163. The proposed increase is to raise the council members' salaries to $16,000 annually, and then to raise the chair to $20,000 annually, and then add a $100 a month vehicle stipend due to all of the travel to different meetings that the chair needs to attend. This is a 25% differential, and the Compensation Committee felt that this was a fair amount based on the amount of time that the chair spends in additional meetings and preparing for meetings. So just a reminder that the history of the council's salaries from 2015 to 2021, it was stagnant at $12,500 annually. And so that's 7 years that there was not an increase that was given until the cost of living adjustment that was received this year. So just to wrap up, this is what the Compensation Committee would be recommending is a 7% increase to all full-time elected officials. And then the council members raised to $16,000 annually. The council chair raised to $20,000 annually with the $100 a month vehicle stipend. And then I've just included that population by county so that you can review that again.
Very good. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. That was very good. All right.
Amy, there's one thing I'd also like you to present, and that is where does Cache County fit with the rest of the counties in the state as far as percentage of their tax rate?
That would be a really great question for Cameron. I'm not sure exactly on that, but from what I understand, we are very low, if not the second or third to the last.
I think we're the second lowest tax rate in the
Lowest
state.
tax rate in
27 out of 29 or something.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have that exact number.
Second
prepared.
lowest.
Amy, I have a quick question for you that I think
Sure.
should ask for the public hearing. So that, the 7% proposed increase is 7% from the mid-2020 raise, because we went back and gave a 3% cost of living. So this is 7% on top of what that changed to in July, correct?
Yes, that is correct. One of the reasons, maybe I didn't mention with the 7%, I apologize. The Compensation Committee, as we looked at it, wanted to give the similar increase that the employees received. The average employee received about a 10% increase with the market adjustment that needed to be made along with the inflation. And so in looking at the council wages, we looked at overall with the COLA and with this recommendation of the 7%, that would be a 10%. However, I'm sorry, that was for elected officials. I misspoke. For the council, the percentage is different. So,
Thank you for
You're
clarifying
welcome.
that.
Any other questions for Amy from the council? Okay, very good. All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward, if you'll come up to the microphone, state your name, and give us what you would like to say.
Hello, Council. My name is Deborah Vanoy. I thank you for this opportunity. I want to start off by saying that my hat is off to the leaders of Cache County who would be willing to serve as they have in the last several years and not make much money for it. It kind of goes to the essence of what I'm going to talk about here. I want to recommend that rather than the council voting on its own pay increases and those of the county executive and other staff, that the council appoint an independent commission to research this issue and make formal recommendations to the council. This approach would give an appropriate arm's length to the process of pay increases and reduce the impression of impropriety. This commission could be made up of leaders in Cache County, including government, corporate, academic, and political. There seems to be a belief that county elected official pay rates trail other counties, and in fact, that's been borne out in this presentation. The Cache County pay rates do trail, but so severely to suggest that if the pay rates go up, council members would be more satisfied and younger people would be persuaded to run for a county council seat. But is that why people are motivated to run for an elected seat, an opportunity to use their service as a primary source of income? That's what concerns me a bit. Elected service is just what that is, service to the community. People wanting to serve do so to give back to their communities. It is not a high-paying position. It is one with voting power. It is one that gives access to a range of other elected officials and offers the prestige of serving one's community in a very important capacity. It is service, and it is not a money-making endeavor. If an independent commission feels the council and executives should have a pay increase based on comparable comparisons, then pay would likely be increased based on their recommendations. But I would like to see an independent commission make that call rather than council members indeed voting for their own increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate those comments. Anyone else like to come in or come up to the mic? Yes.
First off, I want to just start out, I'm Jess Bradfield, Clerk Auditor, for those who don't know me. I'm not dressed up for this, to talk about my own pay. I was at the Hill all day, and so I was talking to representatives and senators, and I thought, Dave is going to say something about my suit, that's for sure.
I'll just think it.
Okay.
You look real nice, Jeff.
Compared to what?
Usually dressed.
I almost put my chore boots on to come back in. But, Jess Bradfield. I thought a lot about this. I wrote a speech, rewrote it, threw it away, wrote it again. I've been through that cycle a dozen times. You know, what do I really want to get across to the council, to the public? And first off, I just want to say thank you. You know, this is an opportunity that there's only 3,000 counties in the entire country. And as clerk auditor of Cache County, I'm one of 3,000 in the entire United States. That's an opportunity that's worth mentioning, and I just want to say thank you. One, for the opportunity. Two, for the last meeting that the council had put forward the pay increase. And obviously, we're here again. Let's not do this for 11 months. But I just want to say thank you for that as well. Essentially, I just want to share a quote that I heard at UAC, Utah Association of Counties. I was in a meeting with the clerks and auditors, and we were talking about, you know, there's been a lot of tension between commissions and auditors lately for various reasons. And ultimately, someone made a comment, and they said, we have to learn to work together because there are no second-class elected officials. There are minimum requirements to becoming elected, but there's never a second-class elected official. And we must ensure that the idea of the office is placed above any individual occupying the office. We're all going to have disagreements, I think, at times. That's the way our government is set up, so that the legislative holds the purse, the executive often is carrying out policy, and then you have kind of these individuals such as myself who are quasi-executive, and we're all learning how we work together, and we're all trying to move the county forward. And at times that puts us into tension, but I just want you to know I'm very grateful for everything you've taught me over the last year, for everything, for all the mistakes I've made, and for all the opportunities I've had to correct them. And so ultimately, whatever the decision is, and I hope it's the same, but I just want to say thank you. So.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate that. Anyone else like to come forward? Yes.
My name is Michael Sean Barchi. I'm here to talk to you in favor of the raise, maybe not anyway, I'm in favor of it. Real quick, I want to talk and thank you all for your service. What you guys do is very important. It's powerful, and it carries much weight in our community. Real quick, in regards to the elected officials that you guys will supervise, I think that the setup works well. I think that the challenging discussions that you guys had in the last meeting, which I watched on YouTube, bears truth in identifying the differences in the positions and compensation for it, and I appreciate the work that you guys put into it. Today, mainly, I want to talk about your compensation. As I hear you guys struggle with this decision of having the optics of looking at your own pay, I hear you guys talk about valuing service over monetary value, and I think that's exceptionally important. I think that part of it, again, what everyone else has here talked about, is one of the things I want to make sure we address is what I guess my expectation as a constituent would be. We expect you, right, to come to these meetings prepared. We expect you to seek guidance and feedback from your constituency, to to give your attention and your focus to these matters. And in short, we see that the expectations that I have for you are substantial. I would also say that there's consequences for the decisions that you make, and that those consequences are substantial. Tonight, you're going to be reviewing some zoning ordinances, and each side of those parties, those consequences are substantial to them. So each decision that you carry, the word is substantial in my mind. As I see this problem, right, it's the hardest part about this is you're talking about the word substantial and being able to create an analytical definition of substantial in regards to monetary terms while embracing and prioritizing the value of service. As I see it, I think there is an entity since its inception has done a phenomenal job of embracing the minimum of substantial throughout ever, and that's the Social Security Administration. When you look at your check and you identify how much tax they've taken out, you say that's substantial. When my mom tells me how much money she makes on Social Security, I say that's not very substantial. So they've done a really good job of finding both sides of the coin there. Like many of these, instead of saying that I would recommend you guys have an independent counsel, I would actually say you adopt the Social Security windfall elimination chart. It takes into account the lack of you guys being engaged in the process. It is their definition of substantial substantial earnings. I think that is again, the effort and the idea is what substantial is. By removing yourselves from the decision to have to choose what the pay is, and even by setting an example or by setting an ordinance and telling your future selves or future positions, hey, the idea is that what you do is supposed to be substantial. It carries a substantial burden, and this is the minimum amount of substantial. It leaves both sides there. So in summarize, what you guys do is phenomenal. I appreciate you guys for your service. I appreciate and think you should try to remove yourselves from the decision as much as possible to make it more analytical versus the very challenging and optical political decision that it currently is. Thank you so much for your continued service. Thank you for how much you are willing to engage in the unwinnable decisions that you're tasked with making. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barchi. All right, anyone else like to come forward? All right, do we have
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
all those in favor in closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Do I ask for more discussion? Okay, all right, thank you, everyone. We're going to go on to the next item, which is another public hearing. This is Ordinance 2022-02 on the Lewis rezone. Request to rezone 30 acres on 2 parcels from the agricultural A10 zone to the rural 2 RU2 zone located at approximately 6200 South, 600 West near Hiram. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. And could you, I'm sorry, what is your name?
Oh, just Tim Watkins with
Tim? Okay, thank you,
Golden
Tim.
Services.
We gotta adjust that screen again, don't we? Have to go into settings.
You want to go into mirror? Just type mirror.
It's a long meeting tonight.
How many of those are you gonna drink?
There's only 2, but it's a long meeting, so.
And down a bit further, right there. Duplicate.
And
Now you can get rid of that one.
That's right.
Get rid of that.
All right, thanks so much.
Always appreciate the assistance to get set up. And council, good evening. For your consideration this evening is a rezone request located at the south edge of Hiram City. This is 30 acres of rezone represented by Emily Culp, located at approximately 6200 South and 600 West. And the request is to rezone from A10 agricultural zoning to rural 2 or RU2 zone. This zone, if passed, could potentially yield 15 lots in a subdivision at the rate of 1 unit per 2 acres. So the property is highlighted. You see approximately 30 acres with the comprising both parcels shown and diagrammed. And this is just on the edge of the current incorporated city limits of Hiram City. Here's another view of the property, and you see the shaded area being the existing corporate limits of, incorporated limits of Hiram City. The 600 West Road that you see flanking the left or west side of the property is shared maintenance by Cache County on the right or the east side and Hiram City on the west side. This road is currently, does not meet standards. It is substandard with respect to width of travel lanes, right-of-way, paved and ground shoulders, and clear zones. Furthermore, this area that you see in the hatch is Hiram's declared annexation area where they intend to grow and provide services. And so they are familiar with this property and have been in discussions with potential annexation and development. And you do have a letter from Hiram City in the packet that expresses Hiram City's desire to continue working with the property owners for annexation and to service development. This is one document, future plans for Hiram City showing the existing and future intended road classification and function. And this is about where the property is situated in that area that is shown and as intended to be serviced by Hiram City. And this is just a graphic showing the property and a kind of a surrounding area average lot size. And I think the purpose of this graphic would be somewhat of an indication of the lower density development that's presently surrounding the property and some of the letters from adjacent residents, both in Hiram City or around the area, expressing a desire for lower density type of development. But staff's review and recommendation is that because there is insufficient access, substandard access to the property, and also given the proximity of the properties to the boundaries of Hiram City and better service and infrastructure and such services be better served by Hiram City. And so staff is thereby recommending denial to the county council. Any questions, be happy to answer.
Couple quick questions. So when you say RU2, just for clarification, that's one house every 2 acres. But that doesn't mean every lot has to be 2 acres in that.
That is correct. It could be in a cluster development configuration.
So you could have a lot of small lots and then a couple of big ones rather than 2 acre lots.
Correct.
And that's going to, if you did that type of configuration, it would be in kind of conflict with the character of the surrounding area in Hiram as it currently stands?
I suppose it could be perceived that way depending on what the exact proposal is, but we do not have a specific proposal subdivision based on the RU2 zone.
How is Hiram, in those gray areas, how is Hiram breaking out the land in the surrounding pieces right now? How are they zoned within the city?
That's a good question. Hiram City might be represented here this evening, and so they.
You have that in the other slide that shows a couple of other parcels of subsequently been developed with other lots.
I think it's that one, that's the multicolored one.
Go back a couple of slides, but
Next forward, that one right there.
Thank you. So that purple area would be.
the striped blue that's just right to the north of this parcel is a developed subdivision, and you can see there's a couple of lots on there. The rest of that area is developed with slightly smaller lots than that, but larger than the orange stripes that's just to the north and east of that a little bit. And I was going to comment on this, but I don't know if I should answer your question now, but you kind of asked that.
Get it recorded, Melissa's talking on the microphone.
I'm just going to pop in, we can address some of these questions maybe as part of your discussion later if you'd like. I know this is the public hearing section, so maybe that would be an opportunity for folks who are here to comment to come and comment. But as the council would like, we'll approach that. But that might help with some of the back and forth you're getting right now from the audience.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, so we ask if anyone would like to come up to the mic to state your name and what you would like to say.
My name is Laura Nielsen. I live on 600 West, which Hiram is now trying to rename 300 East or something like that. It is a very rural road, 2 lanes, sort of. There's the place where there was a landslide and the road takes a funny turn. It's used by cars, dog walkers, motor scooters, horses, etc., and is really the only road currently available to get from Hiram down to Paradise. So I'm kind of reluctant to see it become a really high traffic road. The Lewises certainly have a right to develop their private property, but to the extent that it's going to be impacting traffic in Hiram, and so when the neighbors are concerned about that, there's been a lot of discussion with the city of Hiram, which pretty much will surround the property. So rezoning it from a county point of view doesn't seem to me like a very good long-term plan, because it's going to need to connect to all of the city services, the city roads, et cetera. And so I think it could probably be better handled through the city.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. Right, anyone else? Oh.
Good evening. My name's Emily Kolb. I'm the applicant in this rezone request. I'm acting as agent for my parents, Robert and Vivian Lewis, who are the property owners. And just to give a little background as to why we're making this request, if I can, we understand and agree that the best path for development for the property is through Hiram City. And a year and a half ago, we applied for annexation. We went through the process, and actually our original purpose was just to be able to develop some building lots right along 600 West, not the entire property. That was not our intent. And in fact, the 30 acres is part of a quite a bit larger farm, but that's the only property that we wanted to address. And we were told that we had to expand our annexation, and from there it just kind of kept getting bigger. It became very political, it became very emotional. People don't like change, we understand that. They're afraid of what's going to happen. A lot of assumptions were made, and it just got, and honestly, we feel like there were a lot of mixed signals, because we got to the point, there was gridlock, the county, or the council, I'm sorry, could not agree amongst themselves. The people, there's just a lot of disagreement. And we got to the point where we felt like they were just kind of like, well, let's just not deal with this. And we ourselves asked to meet, let's try to work something out. And to be honest, when we got to the point where they said, well, here's the agreement for you to sign, we really felt like they were trying to get us to just drop it, because the requests were they were in our best interest to proceed. And so we're kind of confused about that, because we really did feel like they didn't want to deal with it. Like they didn't want us to annex, to be honest. And so going back to our original purpose, which was to create some building lots along 600 West, that's still what we would like to do. We understand, the property at some point, it's going to be developed. It's right in the middle of development. But we didn't want to take that on right now, and we didn't want to make promises into the future, millions of dollars commitments at this point when we don't really know what's going to happen. And that's what we were being presented with. It was kind of like, you either agree to all these terms or we don't have to annex you. And so we kind of felt like this is like a no-win situation, because if we try to do it through the county, they want us to go through the city, but then to go through the city we have to annex, but then they're looking at this huge amount of property and wanting us to commit to property that's not even part of this annexation agreement, just to annex. And so we're just, we're kind of back to square one. And again, we don't want to be disagreeable. We want to be good neighbors. We want to, we want to do good things for the community, but we really, we don't really know where to go from here because we're kind of being told this or nothing. And so we just sort of backed off and we thought, well, we're going to at least try to develop some lots because I'd like to build a home there. My parents would. I have several siblings that are interested, and that's what we were wanting to do. We weren't coming here trying to develop all this property and make a bunch of lots in a subdivision at this point through the county. That wasn't our intention. I understand that based on the zoning that we would technically be allowed to do up to 15 lots, but that was not our intention with making this request. And I don't even know if this is allowed, but we would be happy with an RU5 zoning rezone, which would allow us one per every 5 acres, which would allow us 6 lots. We would be happy with that if the council would be in agreement. But that's kind of where we're at. Again, we know it would be best to go through the city, but we're kind of in a position where we really, it kind of feels like everyone's against us. We don't really have an advocate, and we'd like to come together, and we'd like to do something that's good for everyone, but it just kind of doesn't feel like we were getting anywhere. So that's why we're where we are today.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for me? Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cole. Someone else?
Craig Rasmussen I'm the Hiram City Council member. And I think some of your frustrations, Emily, as I have read through the application and some of the documents on the county council packet and things there, started to clarify some of why this was happening. And you have to speak to whether this is true or not or whatever, but some of the documentation was submitted about transportation costs, roadway costs and things, I think was not misunderstood. Hiram City is part of the annexation, is asking for a commitment on roadway dedications for future development, future collector, arterial roads and things. One of the comments was addressing the road from Paradise, and we feel that there's some different routing on that road where there's several 90-degree corners that it makes some abrupt turns right now that eventually in the future as an arterial bypass to the highway that would impact this and other properties out there. It's not the intent to build those roads right now, just to maintain the right-of-ways for that. And if they're used as part of the development, then they would need to build a development roadway, but not an arterial road. So I think that might have been misunderstood in some of the communications in the annexation agreement. And that, if need be, could be clarified. Hiram City certainly is opposed to this rezone for, I think I don't want to repeat and go through the things that was presented from the letter from the city. And I'm glad that Emily mentioned it was intended originally just to build some lots on 600 West. And they can still do that in the city. There's nothing that would prevent them from that. In fact, that is how it was originally proposed to the city. And as the process continued, pretty soon, obviously there's development interest because it is, right next to current development projects in Hiram City. And there was concept plans that were brought forward. That was all part of the discussion on what zones to come into Hiram City at. The landowners have complete control over whether they build 5 roads along the 6th West, or whether they develop the whole property and at what point they do that within Hiram City's boundaries. They still have control over whether they would sell that or develop it, or how that would be approached. So I just want to, for the record, state that Hiram City is opposed to this rezone, and that I will continue to meet with the developers or with the landowners. I've met with them a couple of different times individually to try to help understand what their preferences and needs are, as well as to present kind of a mediation. I can't speak for the whole council, but I can kind of work with them on that, and I'm willing to do that. But I guess that's all I have to share.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Was there someone else? Right.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close this public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. All right, we'll go on to the next item. Public hearing ordinance 2022-03, Brooks Hanson Smithfield West rezone. Request to rezone 14.37 acres from the agricultural A10 zone to the rural 2 RU2 zone located at 6550 North, 400 West, near Smithfield.
Thank you. So for your consideration, this rezone is 14.37 acres proposed to rezone from A10 agricultural zoning to the rural RU2 zone. This zone allows for residential development in a moderately dense pattern that can allow for rural subdivisions and to allow for clustering plans larger than a single parcel. It should be located in a design not only to not unreasonably impede adjacent agricultural uses, nor to unreasonably conflict with the development standards of adjacent municipalities. So with that in mind, you can see the proximity of this highlighted parcel. There's some recent development and rezone to the RU2 district just to the south. And Smithfield has since, in this area that I think I'm highlighting on this. Anyway, just to the east, across the rail tracks, is a new subdivision area that's been annexed into Smithfield City. So there is since this property came forward as a rezone last year, about a year and a half ago, Smithfield city limits were further away. And so the RU2 zone appears to be a better fit than it has been in the past, given changing conditions, growth and development. Here's the property now specifically located adjacent to Smithfield City, albeit divided by a rail corridor. And also of note, when previously explored for rezone or petitioned for rezone, 400 West was not improved with sufficient standard improvements to service growth and development. And there has been a home built by the petitioner, Brooks Hanson, towards the north end of the parcel, and the road has been improved and thus is sufficient or meets county standard for development. And so with these changing conditions and seeing and recognizing surrounding development patterns that are consistent with and compatible with the proposed RU2 zone, staff's recommendation is that the council approve this rezone request, and be happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions, council? All right, thank you, Tim. Okay, again, this is a public hearing. Do we have anyone here that would like to address this issue?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, the last one we have is Public Hearing Ordinance 2022-04, Cub River Estates 2 rezone. Request to rezone 26.35 acres from the agricultural A10 zone to the rural 5 RU5 zone located at 780 East, 12400 North in Cove.
Thank you.
All right, Tim?
Thank you. So the agent, Vern Fielding, is requesting this rezone request from A10 to RU5. The RU5 zone is intended to allow for residential development in a low-density pattern that can allow for rural subdivisions and smaller-scale agricultural uses. This type of development should be located and designed to not unreasonably impede adjacent agricultural uses, nor to unreasonably conflict with the development standards of adjacent municipalities. This property, as shown as seen in this aerial image, is in a rural area, has good road frontage along 12400 North, and yet not really within reach of Lewiston's growth or intended growth area, at least in the foreseeable future, and is presently used or has previously been used as a feedlot and is not necessarily used or suitable for other types of agricultural cultivation. There's a portion of floodplain in the property, but a sufficient amount of area that could lend itself to development. And I do see some development surrounding variety of lot sizes, a lower density rural development pattern. Staff's finding in reviewing this application is that the RU5 zone would be compatible given its intended use for low density pattern that could allow for subdivisions and smaller scale agricultural uses and would not unreasonably impede adjacent agricultural uses or the standards of adjacent communities, and is appropriately served by adequate provision of public services. So staff's recommendation is approval for this rezone request, and again, questions.
Any questions, council? Okay, is there anyone here that would like to participate in this public hearing on this issue? Yes, please come forward and state your name.
I'm Vern Fielding. I'm the agent representing the owner Sunspot Properties with Parker Real Estate. And just speaking in support of this approval, it makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Vern. Appreciate that. Anyone else would like to address this? All right.
Close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we close this public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Looks like our public hearings are closed. All right, we're going to go on to item 11A. Ordinance 2022-01, an ordinance changing the salaries of the Cache County elected officers and members of the Cache County Council. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to comment if that'd be okay.
Please.
One of the things that was presented in the public hearing on this was quite interesting. I read a similar thing, it's probably by the same individual, with a letter to the editor that explained exactly what she explained here tonight. And as I read it and then listened today, I thought it was quite ironic that, of course, that individual didn't know that that's the way that we are doing the discussion on elected officials' salaries, is that we do have a compensation committee. And one thing that probably hasn't been emphasized enough is that a compensation committee does have people that are not county officials and not county employees that sit on that. The one that's been the most active is Paul James from Hiram, and he comes to every meeting. He's been very, very, very good to come. But prior to that, we had Paul, and then we had an individual from Workforce Services that attended the committee and was on the committee, and we had an individual from Utah State University that had also attended, but within just less than a year, they all dropped off because it was too big of a time commitment to be able to come and do it. And so we've kind of got it back down to the point where it was as it was presented. And one thing that I hope the public realizes is that the compensation committee, which I do sit on, we spend hours of time in meetings. We meet 4 or 5 times a year where we discuss the salaries, we discuss the different things that our employees are concerned about. We discuss the health packages. We discuss all the different things that goes into our package to the employees. And then with that discussion, knowing what everyone else is paying their people, other counties, other cities, then we try our very best to make an accurate assessment of it and then present it to the council for approval. And so it has had many hours worth of discussion on it before it ever is presented to the council. The one thing that we got to remember is by ordinance, the council has to approve it in the very end. When it finally is passed, the council has to approve it because we are the ones that spends the taxpayers' money. And with that said, there'll be more discussion, I'm sure, by other council members, but I would like to make a motion, Madam Chair, that we go ahead and approve the ordinance of changing the county elected officials and council to what was recommended by the committee, the committee that we sit on, the compensation committee, as it is written in the ordinance. And so I'll make that comment and that motion, and then the rest of the council can also make motion, not make motion, but they can make discussion, and then if there's a possibility that someone wants to second it, then we'll go on.
Thank you, Gordon. Anyone else like to comment?
Madam Chair, I would.
Yes.
I really appreciate the work of our compensation committee, and I appreciate Gordy's comments, because I think in the end, it really does come down to the county council, and we get to do some unfun things that we don't have political cover for, and neither should we have political cover for. And it is uncomfortable raising your own salary. That's not a comfortable thing to do, but that is one of our assignments, and I don't want to see us give that legislative power away. It's very easy for legislative bodies to give away legislative power, and then it ends up in the hands of unelected people with no accountability. So I would hate to see that happen. That said, also, I've been looking at these comparisons that we've done, and it is really hard, because Cache is kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, with Washington County being the next one above us at 180,000 population. Tooele County being below us, I believe they are at about 72,000 population, and then there's Cache. And so, and nobody really has, at our level, the same form of government that we have. But one of the things that I looked at, and I believe that Paul Borup had the same idea, but we came up with some different numbers. What percentage of the median household income are our elected officials being paid? Because when you start to do the comparisons, Summit County, when we were looking at them, their median household income is $115,000, and that's according to estimates by the Federal Reserve. And Cache is $65,000. So there's a huge disparity there. Tooele County, $79,000. Washington County, $71,000. So Washington's a little closer to us. But if you start looking at the percentage of median household income that our elected officials make, we are higher than those counties. It's interesting. Our range is 132% to 197% for our top earner. Tooele County is 120% to 157%. Washington County is 144% to 170%. So they're a bit similar. For the council, this was really interesting, because you look at Summit County and you saw that their council makes $45,000, which is so much higher than us. But if you take a percentage, it's 39%. And that is high, but it's not as high as I thought it would be. Tooele at $24,000 for their council, that's a 30% of their median household income, while for us, at $13,000, we're at 19%. And it's hard because these are 2020 numbers, so it's hard to compare it to what we would be doing in 2022. But my proposal would be that the council needs an increase. I think the other elected officials are fine with the mid raise that we gave them in the middle of 2021, with the exception of the assessor. I'm worried about that because she's up for election. She's not running again. I don't know who we're going to get, and I'd like to see that go up to the proposed $107,000 to make sure we get somebody good in there. And then I'd like to see the sheriff go up to $113,000, because I think our law enforcement deserves, for risking their lives, I think that's deserved. So that's where my thinking is. I'm guessing Paul has something to say, because just knowing him, he probably does. But that's where I'm coming from, and thought that information might be helpful as you think about this.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Eat some peanuts, Paul, before you start making your comment.
I got an extra Diet Coke just before this.
Anyone else? Paul?
Well, yeah, I guess I can start. I want to before make any comments, be really clear that we're talking about elected officials versus professional employees of the county here. because I think we've all wanted to make sure that the employees are very well taken care of. Couple things, just from a principled standpoint, I'd always like there to be a little bit of tension between what you can make in a public position versus a private industry position. I'd always love people in these elected positions to look out and say, well, I can make more in the private sector, because then you get term limits pretty easy, right? Because they say, hey, I'm going to go make some more in the private sector. So that's something I think we don't necessarily want to match private sector salaries. I'd love to see some tension there, with a couple of exceptions, and that's to Gina's point and what Dave said this last time, is with some of the professional positions. I can't run for attorney, I can't run for assessor, I can't run for sheriff. I'm not qualified to do that, and there's certain qualifications you have to have. So I think with those, we absolutely need to either compete with the private sector or pay them a career type wage rather than just anybody that can run. Second thing, and Gina alluded to it very well, we need to keep the taxpayer in mind. While we want to be competitive with other counties are different, and we are asking the everyday citizen of Cache County to pay for these positions. And we do never, and I don't think we want to benefit at their expense. I think we should be tied at the hip with the citizens of the county. Another thing we need to look at is, can we attract qualified candidates? And as I look out and I look across the council, with the exception of the person talking right now, probably everybody's very qualified to be here. And so we were able to attract very qualified candidates. The executive position, we had 4 people run. The clerk position in the special election, we had 3 people run. So I think at the wages we're paying now, we're attracting qualified candidates. Now that could change if we don't make some adjustments. But at the current levels, I'm not looking out and seeing that we've got significant issues attracting qualified people. There also should be, in addition to that tension with the private sector, a service component. If you say you're in public service, there needs to be some skin in the game to be in public service. You can't just benefit like everybody else would. And finally, there's some fringe benefits that you see in elected positions that I think we should acknowledge, right? If I wasn't an elected person, I just look like a crazy old guy yelling at clouds on my front lawn that the neighbors make fun of. But instead, the media tries to quote me or Gordon, and maybe we still look like crazy old men yelling at clouds.
We probably are.
Yeah. So there's some benefit there, is what I'm saying. That being said, is all the research that I've done, I think what the compensations committees come up with compared to what I've looked at historically and compared it to inflation over the course of time, I don't think we're out of the ballpark by any stretch of the imagination with some of these. I'd like to see a few differences maybe for those professional level positions, sheriff, attorney, assessor, and maybe juice them a little bit more, but I'm fairly comfortable with where we're at. I mean, now we're just talking about pretty minor differences. But those are some things I think we should always keep in mind.
So you seconded my motion?
Almost, yeah.
Almost.
Almost, yeah. I'm trying to see if we make any, let everybody else talk, but I'll look to see if we can make any tweaks at all, but I'm pretty close. I don't think we're out of the ballpark by any stretch of the imagination.
I looked at your numbers that you sent. I appreciate the great amount of research that you did, and we're conservative from even your numbers.
Yes.
With what's proposed here.
Paul, where did you get your median household?
Department of Workforce Services. They have they do a quarterly adjustment, and that's one thing I think we should also maybe look at for future. We don't have to decide tonight, but for future, to make it easy to say, okay, if we're going to fix the salary levels today, which we will, what should we be doing a year from now? And if we just look at those inflation numbers by the Department of Workforce Services, they've got it dialed in by county. We could just almost pull those, and they trail by about a year is the problem. But you could almost dial those in and say, hey, the average wage, like I was able to pull from there, was over the last year, inflation for 2021 was 5.7% for the average Cache County wage. And I think we could kind of look at that and go, hey, the average taxpayer's making about 5.7% more a year. It'd be, I think that the elected officials can kind of keep pace with what the average citizen is making.
Well, if the average citizen's making 5.7% more per year, according to those numbers you have, then why would we consider an overall year raise of nearly 10%? That's the struggle that I'm having, is we already gave a 3% cost of living raise retroactive to July 4th. And I'm just not seeing, I just think that adding a 7% increase on top of that is just too high.
And normally, yes. I think the thing that I saw historically was in 2015 and 16, but the council, whoever, artificially held those wages down. They didn't get anything in those 2 years. They kept them flat, which kind of put in the salaries behind. So if you do that, at some point in time, you kind of have to catch back up. And that's, I think, what we do this year, is we catch back up from those 2 years where we didn't do anything. So it looks bigger this year in comparison to the average salary this year. But historically, since 2013, that almost catches everybody up to what it would have been if we'd have kept pace with inflation since 2013.
And 2013, those years were not economically depressed years. So,
Okay.
So I don't think we want to be too high. To your point, Jeannie, perfectly taken. It's just that there was 2 years in there where we didn't do anything at all. And this, I look at this as more of a catch-up year than a overperformance of what the average citizen sees.
Okay, Councilman Erickson.
I've looked at this, and I feel like I may be one of them that stirred the pot. But I think it's good because we're thinking a little bit deeper, it seems like, this year than other years. If we go with Gordy's proposal, in 1 year's time, executive will get almost a $12,000 raise in 1 year's time. Assessor will get about a $10,000 raise, and that's including the COLA that was added on everything. I'm just talking in 1 year's time. Attorney will get about a $14,000 raise. Clerk auditor will get about a $9,000 raise. Recorder $9,000. Sheriff $10,000. Treasurer $9,000. Council $3,500. Council chair about $5,700. That's some pretty hefty raises. Now, there were years when the county council specifically did not get raises. And I remember very vivid from this podium them telling us in a lot of ways that if we go above that 12.5 threshold, then all of a sudden, because they have to then file different type of tax documents for us, because I remember when I was voted chair several years ago, they had to file different tax documents because I made over the 12.5 and so forth, and I don't know, I just remember them bringing that out for one thing, and we addressed that and says, well, not only that we were fine with what we had, but most of us also didn't realize that when we got on there that we even got paid anyway.
I didn't know.
Yeah. But,
We didn't know how much work it
but
was
that's kind of how, I will say that's what it was sold to us, so that we need to also keep it down. So those several years there, because of tax situations, kept us at that level too. Okay, so there was, yes, service, yes, there was, I mean, everything kind of combined as to why there was stagnant years there. And I don't know if anything's changed since on the tax burden. Has it, Amy?
Yeah, well, let's make sure I don't need to get a run-in with the IRS, that's for sure.
He's always running with them.
So what you're referring to is the Utah retirement system, not the IRS, but the URS. And there is a minimum amount that part-time elected officials can make. However, we have exceeded that threshold, so that won't be anything different this year as it was last year. So,
Okay, because that was brought up several times, you know, what we were allowed at that time. That came into play as part of that decision when it stagnated. Okay, so that being said, it was a combination of kindness as well as practicality, or on the county's position. So, and I'm going to reiterate how I also feel, which also has been shared here, is that, you know, there has been that 3% and where we're sitting. And if I just kind of look at just Cache County, and then I also, like Gina and Paul, I do agree, we need to make sure that those that do require credentials, education beyond, those that I think they ought to be paid, so that we make sure that we have, well, we have to have those to apply. So it is luring to get those people of necessity. I mean, that assessor, that is a big job. And I know Kathleen Howell, that isn't something that just she's learned overnight. It took 40-something years working for the county to achieve that, as well as credentials and everything. Our attorney, same thing. We need to be able to lure attorneys away from their big paying jobs to come here. Sheriff, same way, 53% of the budget.
Sheriff oversees 53%.
53% of our total budget is in the sheriff's office. I think that's a lot of responsibility besides the credentials that they hold. I think that we need to make sure that we have qualified candidates there. Treasurer, I also think that for some reason maybe there's not a qualified credential necessary there, but I think that, you know, there needs to have some level of accountant, or, you know, smart sense, someone there that you know, is going to oversee that collection of all those dollars. Now, the council and the council chair, I don't know. To me, that's whatever you give us is fine. I really don't care. I'm not, like I say, I'm not in it for the money. Anyone else in for the money?
I can go work at Taco Bell for more money.
For the hours, I will say, for the hours and the time that's put in, and again, the responsibility as collective, as a council, over a budget of $100 million. I think we are undercompensated, but I still think why we do what we do, if we get overcompensated, then you forget that vision and why we really should be here in the first place. So, but my proposal is also might match a little bit with the assessors, is that we keep the 2021 levels with the executive clerk, auditor, recorder. But I would like to see us go to the 2022 proposals for the assessors, attorneys, sheriff, and treasurer. And then I'll wait to hear any more on let's see what others say on the county council and chair. So that's how I feel.
Any other comments?
Guess I better step in, so.
Okay.
Step in it. I got step in it. So. I got an email also, and I reviewed that, and as Paul has mentioned, it comes in very close with where we're here. I appreciate the compensation committee. I appreciate the comment was made by the public about a different committee to do that, but I think the way we're doing it right now, this airs everything out in the public, and the public has an ability to say so. If you put it on another committee, I don't know that would be so much brought out. And so I don't know too many people who get to discuss so much out in the open as about what they're being paid, and everything else is what's going on here. I, too, like Gina, 10% is a whopper of a raise. When you sit back and you go to the average annual raise, and I understand we got to catch up for some of those years that were lean, but I'm like, can we do that in a more step process rather than a jump process? And that debate is what's before us right now. So I will say that all of those who run for an elected office, I appreciate that, and I know that you've got to have some skill sets in there. So hopefully that doesn't go as we demean anybody's skill set that's in there. But to sit here and be responsible for the taxpayers' money, I start to wonder, is 10% a big bust on some things? I understand we need to compensate and attract that part, but wow, 10% is, and I understand where the compensation committee got that. So there's that knuckle busting, head busting thing that we got to come to. So to say the point, I don't have the answer, and that's why the discussion needs to continue. But I mean, we're talking about some dear and cherished people who have their heart in the county and who are working, but we're also talking some dear and cherished people who are taxpayers who want us to be rightfully steeds of the budget as well. So there's my point without any answer to it, so.
Well, I think the only thing I would really feel important about is that the assessor, the attorney, and the sheriff need to be raised to levels that will attract people, qualified people out of the private sector to come and serve in the county. I think the other offices are more learn-on-the-job types of positions, with adequate support from existing staff to carry the position forward without having to have credentials of some kind, professional credentials. So, you know what, I guess I would like to see us table this for another week, for another meeting, and have some numbers pulled together again, because we're talking about so many different scenarios now, I'm not sure we can keep track of what we've decided. At least I can't.
I would prefer that we go ahead and discuss this till we can all come to a vote, simply because I don't think we should kick it out any further. I think we ought to make a decision. We can table it all year.
Yeah, we can.
So let me make one thought here. I don't hear anybody that seems to be opposed to moving the assessor, the attorney, and the sheriff to the proposed 2022 salary levels.
I would agree with that.
I don't know that anybody's too far out with that we need to start catching people up on the other positions, but is 10% just a lot under most circumstances? So would it be feasible to take half of that, because I think the 2022, take half of that move for the rest of the positions this year and then catch everybody up in the next year too. So if you say, we're gonna take 2022 proposed salaries for assessor, attorney, sheriff, and then split the difference for all the other elected officials between the 2021 and the 2022, catch them
You're
halfway
saying
there.
essentially then 3.5% for all of the others, with the exception of the assessor, attorney, and sheriff.
Yes.
And they're at 7%.
Yes.
Dave, did you have something to add?
Well, that's what you just said, then those others are already caught up to the level that you want them at right now. Isn't that what?
I think
they're already at 3.5. We got the COLA, which was 3, so we've already brought them up to.
So that would make for the year, well, the total 6.5%. We had a report that it was a 5.8% increase average in the county. Is that right, Paul?
Yes. Yeah, Department of Workforce Services for 2021 was saying 5.1% in 2021 was the average wage in 5.7 average wage for Cache County increased over this past year.
So that would put everybody 6.5%, with the exception of those 3 credentialed types of.
And they'd be at 10.
And they'd be at 10. Yep.
For me, that's too high.
Yeah, it is.
6.5 is too high.
Yep.
even when they,
I'm not convinced that they have any catching up to do. I think that when we compare salaries, we're comparing to counties that have a higher medium household income than we do, whether they're larger or smaller than we are. And so to me, it's a really difficult comparison to them because it's really not apples to apples. It's, you know, they're different than us. And so I think what they're making right now, with the 3.5% that we gave them back in July, I think they're fine, except for those that have the certification. I don't see that we need to catch up more. I just don't see it. And it's a hard, you know, we've got a lot of inflation for our folks. I think making the wages that our folks, elected officials, are making, I just have a hard time thinking of the widows mite paying for over $100,000 for, you know, for a wage. It just, for an elected official, and I think they're fine. Except for those that need the certified stuff, I think we should just leave it at what we already did this year.
With that in mind, does Gordy's motion die for lack of second then? Because no one has seconded it.
No, they haven't. After listening to all this discussion and looking at things, Amy, and correct me if I'm wrong, on the catch-up part of it, you know, if we leave it where it, you know, as the proposal has been, is not giving anything to those few positions there, what are we looking at next year for the catch-up part of it?
Well, I think that's always a risk that we take, right? I have been with the county for just about 4 years in the next couple of weeks. And there has been talk in the past about catching up in the next year, and that is quickly forgotten. And so if that is the intent, I would hope that we would document that and try to move forward. Also, John, maybe you correct me if I'm wrong, but would that be tying a future budget or council to future wages?
You can't do that. So that there would be no guarantee
Of a catch-up. There could be a recommendation, but it wouldn't be a guarantee. So that would be something that I would be concerned about if that was the intent of not giving the full recommended increase at this time.
you know, Gina, we gave the employees across the board about 5% this year, didn't we?
3.5. Well, yeah.
Plus COLA.
Yeah.
So really, we'd be doing about the same thing for elected officials if we dropped them to 3%.
Historically, what's happened is that all of the elected officials receive the same percentage increase, and they aren't all making the same amount, and so that's kind of the reasoning for the difference, I think, is because of some of the professional credentialing. But also, historically, what's happened is that there's been a set percentage increase, and they all get that same amount rather than dividing it up differently. So,
Amy, and didn't we, for the employees, give them 3% last year, and then what they got this year was the equivalent of 7% to?
yes, on average. So that includes the COLA, and then on average, that would be the market adjustment, and the merit increase overall was about 10% that employees were given. So
that's why I still go back to, we cut the 7% to set 3.5. That gives a 6.5 overall to elected officials, which is still less than what we gave the employees.
may I remind you that the 7% has been budgeted, so by going with the full recommendation, it would not be making any changes to the budget. And then also, as you're reviewing, Paul, help me understand, you're saying the 5.7% was for the year 2021, and so as we look at that, that's historical data, but if we're looking forward, to move that to the 7% would probably keep up with what inflation is for Cache County, with wages moving forward as we're setting that wage forward for 2022. So just a few things to think about.
Thanks. Thank you, Amy. All right. Gordon has a motion.
I'd
Anyone?
also like to make a comment on that motion, and that is, I think it's quite ironic that we see all the data throughout the state. Cache County is at a certain point, the rest of the state is a certain point. Somewhere along the line, we as Cache County Council just can't quite grasp that we are so far behind everyone else that that isn't the way you should compare it. But that's a you know, a line that we should look at when you're making a decision. And I mean, we as Cache County, well, let me just say it this way: our full-time elected officials and our full-time employees, we as a council have been very good to them to keep them fairly where they need to be. The only ones that are really way, 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 way behind is the council themselves. And I have told you quite a few times that I've sat on the council for 17 plus years, and when it comes down to this, we are just so reluctant to raise our salaries because of the perception that it puts off. But then you heard the one gentleman here, he said, I'm all for what you're doing, and everyone I talk to will come up to me and, yes, I think you should have more of a raise. That's kind of the consensus of the citizenship out there. I mean, when you look at it, and we're at 13,000, and there's a lot of counties that are half our population, and they're double that. That just tells me that there's a real challenge with us not being willing to move ahead. Now, you all know that I'm not going to be around another year, and so it really doesn't make too much difference to me, but I'm looking for the future of the council and the future that's not even on the council, and I'm here to tell you that you're way, way, way off base as far as where you're at compared to everyone else in the state of Utah. And I think we got probably the most conservative state in the union. And so if all the other councils are really conservative and we're way, 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 way below them, that'll tell us something about how we think of ourselves.
Madam Chair, may I make a...
Please.
I'm not going to comment on the full-time elected officials, but on council, we've all identified a need to update our code. That's a legislative process. You're our legislators. I think that it's not a coincidence that the salaries, part-time salaries for council members have stagnated, and you look at the code and when have many of these provisions last been updated. If we really want to update the code, it seems to me that we're going on, some of us here today, 3.5, 4 hours. Mm-hmm. We haven't talked about a single ordinance.
Right.
And that's how it is at virtually every council meeting. If we want to update the code, you ought to be here maybe 4 Tuesdays a month, 2 of them regular meetings, and 2 of them committee meetings to figure out what to do with vicious dogs, get the auditing provisions to conform to auditing practices, and the other provisions that we keep identifying. There's work to be done on the legislative front, and you're the legislators.
Thank you, John.
Well, John just scared me into $16,000.
All right, again, Gordy's got a motion on the floor.
Is your motion the original motion?
Yeah, I'm not going to change it. I think it's accurate.
Wasn't that died for
After
lack of second?
No, I'm going to second it.
Okay.
After I've spent all those hours on that compensation committee and know how much we go through in order to try to get right fairly accurate where it should be, I really am dumbfounded that we're so unwilling to move forward. I mean, if we pass it at kind of what's been suggested other than mine, we didn't make any effort at all to do anything. We just kicked it down the road a little bit forward, and we'll talk about it next year. But Anyway, I'm not gonna change my motion. I think it's accurate.
Did you have something more to add, Dave?
Has that been seconded? Oh,
I'll second it.
Motion to divide the question. I move that we consider separately the council salary and have that separate than the rest of this ordinance.
Say that again,
So
Gina.
we would consider the council salary separate from the elected
Why
official
would we do
salary.
that?
Because maybe I want to vote no on one and yes on the other. Somebody else does too, so that's why I make that motion.
So now what do I have to do? I have to accept that,
You don't have to,
I don't have to do anything, do I?
Gina's motion.
Yeah, I don't like to do
If it
anything
doesn't,
more than I
it
have
may
to.
not get a second either.
yeah, if it doesn't get a second, it dies. You can accept it if you want to, unless the chair restates it. At that point, it belongs to the council.
I know Gordy's motion, I will not vote for it, I can tell you that. But I would have a substitute motion if that doesn't pass, so.
All right, so
That's why I kept asking.
Okay.
Was there a second? Was there a second?
All right, so I guess where we're at right now, we'll take a vote on Gordy's motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye? Aye. Say aye.
Aye, yes, say aye. All, those opposed?
Hey.
Okay, so the nays take it.
So motion.
So motion dies, or what is
Yeah.
done with?
It
Do we
fails.
have another motion then?
Barbara?
Yes,
I would therefore move
okay.
that we keep the following at the proposed 2022 levels.
Okay.
That'd be assessor, attorney, sheriff, council chair. And that we keep the following at the 2021 level: executive, clerk auditor, recorder, treasurer.
I will second that motion.
Okay. There's been a motion presented and seconded. All in favor of that
I
motion?
got a question. Did you say council
I did,
at the 22?
at the 22 levels.
That throws a whole new thing on it. The only ones that we're not doing is the clerk and the recorder, and who's the other one? Is that it?
No, you didn't say treasurer, did you?
Recorder and treasurer.
Or the executive as well. You know, one other thing that I'll say in that, and that is this past week, we were all asked to go and meet with the recorder to see, he'd made a request last meeting, and so I took the time to go and sit down and visited with him, and as I visited with the recorder, I came to the decision on my part that he has finally figured his job out. I think it was real shaky at first, but he's figured it out, and I think he's done the county a very, very, very admirable job, and he's got vision of digitizing all of the maps, which is going to take a lot more effort. I was impressed. You know, I think we should have his salary at a salary that's been proposed. I also have spent some time with the clerk, and you know, that was a rough road right at the start. There was a lot of problems with that, and I think through the 2 years that he's been in, it's pretty well evened itself out, and I think our clerk's office is doing an excellent job, and I hate to not award him for pushing that office far forward. And I don't think you can find an executive in 1 year that's accomplished the things that our executive has. I think he's got a vision for the county. I think he's got a vision for the future. And I think he's got the ability to move us in that direction. Now, everyone has their own opinion of everything, but I hate to see us separate those three out when I think they're just as quality. I think they're quality people, and not quality people. Yes, quality people, but also they're doing a quality job with what their task has been given. And so I would probably, I don't know how I'll vote.
Gordy, I'm glad that you said that, because I think that's one of the challenges in this, is it becomes personal, and it's not meant personal. We have to look at what the position is worth, and I think nothing proved that better than what's been going on the last year where we've had so many resignations. There's no time for the council to be like, oh, well, we gave this stellar person this much, but now we've got to fill this position. We don't have time to take it back down to some other amount. And so we have to look at what the position is worth, not what the person is worth, because we do have a lot of hardworking individuals and elected officials. They work hard. So it's not personal. It's about the position.
Yeah, and in saying that, I think that what they're doing with the position is admirable. Now, everybody's got their own opinion of that, so I don't want to ever single it out as it's personal. I'm just saying what I've seen of it and what I know they should be doing in that position. I'm happy. I wasn't at first, I'll tell everybody that. I thought this is a crash. And you know, I just am impressed with what has taken place, you know, in the last while.
I'm going to ask a clarifying question. Councilmember Worthen, you mentioned resignations. What were you referring
You
to?
think of, we had Jill Zollinger that resigned. So, you know, let's just, you know, whatever her salary was, we kept that salary. We didn't go back to something else. We had Craig Butters that resigned, you know, so we've had those resignations. And what my point is that if you go to personality and you set the salary based on personality, if there's a resignation, they move on to something else. You don't have time to go back to set it at what the normal person would get. And so you're doing yourself a disservice, in my opinion. I think that these positions need to be set according to the position and not the personality. And that's the point I'm trying to get to.
And I appreciate you saying that, and we as a compensation committee, we gave that department what it was being paid across the state of Utah. It wasn't person or anything, it was what clerks, it was what recorders were being paid throughout the state. And so, you know, anyway, I've said way too much.
Question.
When means we vote.
That just means I'm ready to vote, so.
Can I may say one thing real quick? One other thing that I did not mention when I was talking before, as we talk about this, is we have what we're paying the positions, but they're overseeing certain departments. And those positions over the course of time change. Because if you look at the various departments and what we're funding from the department level versus just the salary, right? You look at somebody like the treasurer who has had a 0% staff increase since 2017. So they're doing the same amount of work in the treasurer's office with the same amount of people. The sheriff, a 2% staff increase since 2017. Assessor, 10% staff decrease since 2017. The executive, 150% staff increase, attorney, 26%. Recorder, 100% staff, clerk auditor, 28. So the job itself is materially changed in some departments rather than others too. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, is there more work? Absolutely. I mean, that there's an argument can be made there, but there's always more work than can be done. We're always dealing with limited resources and unlimited wants.
Call the question. Motion to end debate.
Okay,
And
motion,
go-
okay.
And go ahead and vote.
Okay, we're going to end the debate and go ahead and vote. Thank you, Gina.
Okay, let's state the
Okay.
let's state the motion again. Can you remember it, Dave?
Dave, will you state that again, please?
The motion was that we accept the proposed 2022 levels for assessor, attorney, sheriff, council chair. For the 2021 levels with the already COLA raise and everything for the executive, clerk auditor, recorder, treasurer.
Okay, was there a second?
I was the second.
Gina seconded it. Okay, we've got that motion on the table. It's been presented and seconded. We are ready to vote. All in favor? Yes.
I've been reminded, these votes are supposed to be roll call votes.
Okay.
In a way, they always are because we know who's voting what.
All right.
But roll call technically would have you go
Okay, so we need to go roll call.
down. That's what the statute says.
Okay, thank you. All right. Dave, we're taking a roll call vote.
I'm in favor, aye.
Okay. Gordy?
I'm in favor.
Nay.
Yay.
Yes? Okay, I'll say yes.
Yes.
I'll say nay.
So there's a majority of yay and 5 to 2, correct?
5 to 2.
So motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That's really hard to talk about, and thank you for everything. All right, moving on. Lewis Rezone, Ordinance 2022-02. A request to rezone 30 acres on 2 parcels from agricultural A10 zone to the rural RU2 zone located at approximately 6200 South, 600 West near Hiram.
Just gonna start talking about this one then?
Yep.
Okay. I think one of the things I want to say about this one, and this is just more in general as we go through, and Nolan, I'm going to rely on you a lot this year. We've got a housing crisis, affordable housing crisis in Cache County and in Utah. And it seems to me one of the problems that we have is that we're wanting to build everything to a finished state all the time, roadways, everything else, which is an admirable goal by itself, right, to have a good road. But I grew up on a dirt road. And so some of these things that we're putting on, is there a way to make some adjustments with that? And it sounds like in this case, when I heard the proponent talk about needing an advocate at the county level, I think we need to start working on ways to make some of these things happen, make some of this development happen, where we've got a few things that I appreciate what the Planning Commission does, and I don't vote against the Planning Commission, I don't think ever. Still, I think that's a uninterrupted thing, but we need to do something a little bit different from a land use code issue to really start to address some of these things and to really advocate and to look at something and say, hey, we want to build 6 houses. We need to make that happen. And come up with something where that can happen. Maybe we can't do that here tonight, but I just really want to get people thinking about how can we make some changes to our land use code while not waiting for the whole thing to be rewritten. Because there's so much pressure there, we cannot say, we're gonna just wait till this adjusts. We need to start being able to make some adjustments on the fly so that projects like this, where you wanna build 6 houses, can get done.
Well, I think your point is well taken, because we've been waiting for, what, almost 4 years for the master plan to get done?
And it's not gonna arrive this year, so.
Yeah, so I think you make a good point.
Sorry, Chris, you thought we were done going back and forth because of alcohol ordinances, but.
No,
We got a new one this year.
I agree with you, Paul. I think we need to find a way to help these people where they own the property and they're looking for family to build on that property. I think there needs to be a way where we can help them.
You know, after I heard the presentation and they said they had a lot of land in adjacent they're not even talking about, there's no question in my mind that just through the county ordinance, they can build the 3 or 4 homes that they want to build with. They can just come into the county and get a permit. As far as them doing all the subdivision and all this other stuff, I don't think they even have to do it. They can, with the amount of acreage they got, qualify for the 2 or 3 more lots that they want and just come in and request a building permit from the county. The one thing that I don't think they understand is that they would have combined all their acreage in order to qualify. It won't tie that acreage up for the future, but they can qualify for those building permits that they want. And I also think that Hiram wants to work with them, but there's some communication errors there that I think if they'll sit down and work on it, I think they can even do the annexation into Hiram. And so
I think the county will accommodate them. If they want to build in the county, I think they got enough property in number of acres that they can qualify for those lots just out of the way it's zoned, or out of the way acreage goes. And they can just come in and get it and ask for a building permit and be granted it in the county. And then if they want to deal with the city and they want to deal with subdivide and all that, that can still be done in the future. But if they want to do it this year, I think they can qualify, as near as I can gather.
Any other discussion? Chris, did you have something to say?
Well, it's coming up. I mean, this ought to be annexed into Hiram. I don't think there's even any question. Well, we've never been in the business of subdividing.
No.
Managing subdivision.
But we have been in the business allowing them to build family lots on a farm.
Family lots on a farm.
And if they want to do that, they can easily do that. And then if the time comes, they want to work with Hiram City and become an annexation. Well, annexation is the word. There's no problem with doing it. She said she only was talking about maybe 3 lots, and I think they've got enough acreage there that they can qualify just on how many acres they got without, I think they can just come in right now and ask Chris, and I could be wrong, Chris, you might correct me, but I think that family can come in and request 3 building permits, and I think they've got enough acreage that they'll be able to get them.
We're looking at 6, just for clarification.
6, yeah.
Well, if you get putting more and more and more, and then you've got to annex, and I'm not in the opinion that the county wants to get involved with you. You're in a position where you need to work with Hiram City, and I don't think you understand what they mean, and I don't think they've explained it very well, but I think they're more than willing. They want to annex you, they just got to work through some things. But if a couple of 3 of you want to build, I think you can start tomorrow. Right, Chris? We're pretty easy to get along with.
Well, I think there's got a couple other issues. I think they're talking about the arterial roads, and, they just go out there and just build a few homes. Yes, those few homes may not deeply affect everything else, but when I look at that, they've annexed all the way up and kind of around and even down a little bit in the Hiram according to the map. And here we go. This is like deja vu, Providence, River Heights, how we're starting to create, these circular, then all of a sudden we'll have like a little county parcel where we have a little road. You know how we beg all the time to get rid of all the responsibility of roads to cities as they grow, and I just don't want us to be in that same, and that's why I think that Hiram, as close as it is, they need to be in control of their own destiny, because I'm sure these people, they consider themselves, what do you call Hiramites? Or,
apparently they don't claim them.
Not yet. Not yet. Well, your address is Hiram.
It's in the county.
But doesn't it say Hiram, Utah? Mine says Smithfield, Utah, and I'm 3.5 miles north of Smithfield in the county.
It's a farm right now, there's no.
Yeah, but it would be.
Is your zip
it would
code
be higher.
84321? What's your zip code?
But
There's not really an address.
you got to have a zip
there
code.
would.
I don't even never got anything delivered there.
Okay, anyway, I also want to make the comment that the county will not allow you to build unless you do the setback of the road. So if that's a concern, you're going to have to do that even in the county, and they won't require you to do any more than Hiram City. Hiram City will require the same thing, so you're not going to change that.
The difficulty was that we didn't really feel like there was like a fair back and forth.
Could we please have you come to the mic so that we can get that in, please? Thank you.
Our difficulty, because we totally agree that it makes sense that it goes through the city, it's annexed through the city, developed through the city, but what do you do when you can't come to an agreement and they're saying this is what you have to do and it's not in your best interest? Because we feel like they looked at the property and went, wow, there's a lot we want here. We're going to make that a requirement for you to do what you want. We didn't think that was fair. And we made the comment, like, well, what are our rights? And we were actually told we didn't have any because we weren't part of the city. And so, who has our back? what are we part of? What rights do we have? What can we do with our property? And we know it has to fit within, what the goals are, what you're trying to accomplish in the community and the restrictions with the utilities, all those things. We understand that. We're not arguing against that, but we're just saying there's got to be a different process where they can't just say, take it or leave it, because that's not fair,
Right now, your rights are that it is currently zoned A10.
Right, right.
Being zoned A10, then you can go in there and put one home per 10 acres.
We understand that.
Now, you're wanting to go past that to a whole nother zoning, which then is another cup of soup. It's another set of rights for RU2, RU5, whatever you're going to, but it was RU2.
Yeah.
Which then, all of a sudden, you start doing that with 30 acres or whatever it is, then all of a sudden, yes, it does affect a lot of people around there if you were going to put 30 homes within the county by doing RU2
We
or
can-
15
we can do
homes or whatever
30.
it is. It
Yeah.
will affect everybody around there. Right. And Hiram City as such. That's what they're gonna say, well, if that's the case, then this is what we require, because you're gonna use their road, you're gonna use all that they have. And the county's saying the same thing. If we're gonna have to go out and, if you're gonna stay in the county at that, then you're gonna have to maintain all these roads and services, and all those wells that you'll have for everybody will affect maybe other water rights. I don't know. Yeah. So that's what they're kind of looking at the big picture on, probably.
Well, and the other thing to remember is if you go to an R2 zone, then you do have the potential to build 30 homes or whatever you mentioned. You say you only want 5, but let me tell you, as soon as you get the 30 lots, all of a sudden every one of your neighbors and every one of the cousins and everyone else wants one of those lots, and you legally can sell them, and there's a pile of money there. And so what I'm trying to establish here is, even if you wanted to stay in the county and just build 10 homes, you're gonna have to build some road, because you're gonna impact the roads that are Hiram roads. My best suggestion to you is, I shouldn't be making suggestions, I'm just saying, if I'm looking at it through your eyes, I'd say, okay, the way we can do this is let's go and get the one lot per 10 acres. Let's go ahead, and you and your sister and who else wanted to build there, go ahead and build, and then begin the discussion with Hiram City, to get annexed into there and get it worked out. They're looking at your whole piece of property and they're saying, my word, look at the potential this has got, and I'm assuming from what you're saying that they're wanting you to annex all the land in at the same time, so that, then they can start working on the roads and all that other kind of stuff. And that's probably what's scaring you a little bit, but.
Well, when we started the process, their first proposal to us was that they had a road on their master plan, and it was right at the northern edge of our property. It was on the master plan. 2 people disagreed and made a lot of noise about it. And because of that, they totally changed their master plan and told us we couldn't put a road there. They weren't going to give us credit, because originally they were going to give us the credit even for the road. Next thing you know, they're wanting us to dedicate 99 feet for this minor arterial road that they said that we had to put in, we had to pay for it, and we could not access with driveways even to offset development costs. So it went from that to this other thing, and we just, we're kind of like, almost felt like a bait and switch, like, what's going on here? Why can it go from that to that? Because people are up in arms. And it just didn't feel like it just didn't feel fair, because, like, what could we do about what they were willing or not willing to do for us? Nothing. Because they say, with the annexation, they can say yes or no for any reason. So I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to say that I feel like the process needs to be more fair.
Well, the other thing to remember.
Yes. Go ahead, Carl.
We shouldn't be here having a debate with the proponent. We need to be making our decision based on the data that we have.
Very good.
You're right.
Thank you, Carl. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, so I guess we need a motion for this.
Didn't that,
Maybe we're not ready, this is initial proposal, maybe we're not ready to make a decision.
Okay. Are we not ready to make a decision on it?
what did the planning and zoning decide?
Well,
There's denial.
They
I'll
recommended
I'll make a motion, since it's initial proposal, to waive the rules. And I'll make a motion to uphold the, recommendation by the planning commission to deny the rezone request. That being said, it's RU2, it's a problem, I understand the issues with this one. And I think there's something that can be worked out. I just don't know that the county moving it to RU2 is the right answer, but I think there's something there that can be done. But for the RU2, I just would make a motion, we uphold the planning commission, so.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's, we're waiving the rules, correct?
Yes.
Waiving the rules, and there's been a motion made that we uphold the planning and zoning's decision to deny the Lewis rezone, and it's been seconded.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I agree with what the planning and zoning said, that the proximity of the subject properties to the boundaries of Hiram City with access to utilities, emergency services, and infrastructure would be better served as part of a Hiram City development through an annexation process. And I think that's well said, given how close it is, so.
Thank you. Thanks, Gina. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. Any nay votes? Okay. 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, very good. Thank you. Ordinance 2022-03, Brooks Hanson, Smithfield West rezone. Tim, were you wanting to? No? Okay, very good. All right, any discussion on this, or?
So, again, I got a couple of questions. So what is this is the same proposal that a couple of years ago, right?
Correct. The difference now is that a road has been improved.
And so what specifically has changed? Because I know back then it was road, the frontage road, width and quality and everything. It was drainage. There was drainage issues on all of them, right? And so what has changed? Was the road been redone, and is there provided drainage issue? So what is the big deal? Big changes.
I'll speak to the road and then first. And not shown in the aerial image here is a new home on the kind of the northern corner of the parcel, and so.
And we approved that last time.
And so the initial rezone request was denied because the road was not improved, but then the homeowner, the property owner, proceeded in building a home and improving the road and frontage, and presumably drainage with that road. Along the frontage of the property. So the road improvement included drainage.
So that includes all 14 acres then? 980 feet. Yeah, that's that whole strip. The whole strip. Not in front of all the other homes. No,
those were done previous in 2015.
Okay, so that does, so you did it all the way to your home, and that was one of the issues?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then the other changed condition is that Smithfield City's annexation and area for development is closer to that property, albeit there's a railroad corridor between.
But all these properties will not be part of that annexation?
That's correct. But the proximity
They
of.
will never want to be part of that, because once they get it as independent as they will be, which does reflect on our last thing we just voted on, but.
Yes, and.
Point of order, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, just that in terms of the R2 being more adjacent to municipal growth, that's more the case today than it was a few years ago as well. And then I believe there were conversations between applicant and Smithfield City about potential annexation and services, and sounds as though sewer service in particular is a barrier to a cost barrier and feasibility in terms of and railroad track issue. So Those are the three primary
And you
issues.
don't have to build a great big fence behind, along the railroad track, right?
So, can I come up and,
No,
I think we're okay.
Smithfield City's comment was
not a public hearing.
that's not part of their plan in the foreseeable future because of the infrastructure to take sewer under railroad tracks and the cost imposed to do that, with everything associated with that.
We had the public hearing on this previously, and so we're not having the public hearing anymore. So thank you.
But my other point was drainage,
Is there any more drainage comments, Matt?
because that also came up, you know, all those parcels, where they're going to go, and where, will they be like ditto, will they make sure that they're ditto with the others that are along there?
Yeah, so when this proposed area was developed last year and he built the house, he had to conform to the same requirements, whether it be a subdivision or a single-family house. Because of the new road manual ordinance, he was required to improve the road all the way along his frontage, and he matched what was previously there with the side ditches and the drainage, and installed a new culvert underneath the road. So along his frontage, he does currently meet the county standards. And since I'm here, one thing I would like to add for the council is that although we are looking at his frontage and back to Hiram and those other ones, is that they still are using Smithfield's transportation. And there is some substandard places in Smithfield, you know, so as we are growing in the county, it is advantageous for us to work with those communities and try to help them improve their streets, vice versa, because towards lower down there, Dave, there still is some areas that are substandard for roads coming out of Smithfield, but that's not within the county.
So the drainage, they put a culvert underneath it?
Yes, there was an existing culvert, so all that drains to the north of his property where the power lines are, and all of the drainage goes underneath the road and goes to the west.
Just to the west?
Yep, to the west.
Just to the west, so.
Go west, young man.
In the fields there?
In the existing drainage channels, Dave, I think there's an irrigation ditch there that takes the drainage.
So it was been linked up to that irrigation line that went down that?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
We need all the water, don't we, Dave, from that
Well,
irrigation ditch?
it's, the biggest problem is when we have those springs and there's some of those rains that hit, then all of a sudden, no matter what, there's always too much water.
The other thing,
It's gotta go somewhere.
Dave, the other thing that we do is when they come in and do that development, we will try to hold the pre-runoff to the post, you know, we'll look at the pre-runoff and the post-runoff, and so the runoff that he's sending down to that irrigation ditch shouldn't be any more than what's currently been there from the agricultural fields. So we do try to limit the amount of stormwater runoff that's coming off of his development as well.
Lots to the south of there, a lot of those have retention, little smaller kind of retention areas.
They do, along their swells.
Yeah, and there's swells, I guess.
So while the drainage is still going west, that's historic drainage that's been going there for years and years. And our goal as engineering is to make sure that runoff is contained and it's similar to what's been going historically. We're not all of a sudden sending, you know, tons and tons more water down in a ditch or an irrigation ditch that wasn't meant for that water, so.
I appreciate that. That's what I think they were the two things I know we addressed last time it came through that was kind of a problem, so.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and we go ahead and approve this ordinance, 2022-03.
Okay. Anyone want to second that? Okay, seconded. It's been moved and seconded that we waive the rules and approve ordinance 2022-03 for the Brooks Hanson Smithfield West rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because of my location of property is within, he can throw a stone to my property. I couldn't, but he could. And so I'm going to abstain from that.
Thank you. All right. Okay, very good. All right, we're down to ordinance 2022-04, Cub River Estates to rezone.
Did we waive the rules on that? Didn't we?
Request rezone 26.35 acres from agricultural zone to the rural located at 780 East, 12400 North in Cove. Do we need to address this, or?
This one was pretty straightforward. So I would waive the rules and make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-04, Cub River Estates 2 rezone.
I will second.
Okay, it's been
Your
moved
chair's
and
gonna show
seconded
you.
to waive the rules on ordinance 2024-04, Cub River Estates 2 rezone. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I will say one thing, is I have seen that area underwater, you know, a high flood year.
So buy flood insurance.
But because of the feedlot status, it'll be very, very fertile.
They'll have a good garden and a good lawn, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, but it's a rocky piece of ground, but it's good, it's kind of good for homes.
Got questionable neighbors in Cove, too.
All right, was that a majority then?
Unanimous.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right, resolution 2022-02, resolution updating the Cache County Board of Education districts.
I had a question on this. Where did this come from, and is this what the district
What is
wants
this?
us to do?
Yeah.
Do you know, Bryson?
Yeah, you want me to go out there?
Yeah, would you? And this is from a new law that was passed in the special session, right?
Yeah, so this is mainly a technicality. So Logan City did it with the Logan School District, I want to say, not their last meeting, the meeting before. So it's basically saying these are their boundaries, and since we had new precincts drawn, this is what happened. We contacted the school district, and we informed what we have to do. It's kind of weird because you guys are in charge of their boundaries, but then they're like their own entity, so it's really kind of weird, but it's just a technicality, just say these are their boundaries. No one was moved. Everyone still lives in, like, there's no boundary changes, except for like a 2 square block in Providence when we added that extra precinct. But we contacted the school district about it, and yeah.
Bryson, aren't there 2
Oh, yeah.
Logan precincts?
That's correct.
that-
And there's 2 Logan precincts, I think Logan 24 CSD, which when Logan annexes, like, for example, West, those kids go to Cache, not Logan school districts. And before that, they weren't represented, so that's what we found out. So we had added them in. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Bryson?
Do we need to table this? I have no clue even
See,
what
I-
we're
yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about.
this is a newbie.
I think,
I
okay.
think we ought to have a map. I think we ought to have a discussion. And I'd like to hear from the school board. Isn't it they're ones that want it, or they don't have anything to do with it?
They have to do it because of a new law, right?
yeah, so it's mainly a technicality that you approve it. We didn't change their boundaries, except for like I said, that 2 square block radius, like in Providence. And we notified them about that. And we've been in contact with them probably since the beginning of December about this. We thought they were just were to approve their own boundaries, but with this new law, it's the legislative body in charge of, for example, the county, like Logan City did for the Logan School District. So,
That was my understanding in talking to Jess, that he was under the understanding that the school district would take care of all this, but then with this new law,
yeah,
he found out that the council needed to approve this, and that there was a time crunch.
yeah,
on
so it'd be
it.
January 31st is the time crunch.
Does-
We talked to Terry Rhodes, the chair of the school board there, and she knows about it. And we told her about what's happening, and she was okay with it from that phone call we had.
Do we have to have a public hearing, or this is?
No, the statute says if there's a school board that covers more than one municipality, the council determines the school board districts. If there's a school board or a school district with one municipality, that city council determines the districts. My understanding, I haven't looked at the map, but my understanding is that what's being presented to you does not change the boundaries of the current school board districts, with 2 exceptions. Because of the re-precincting, there are 2 blocks in Providence.
Correct.
that were previously in a different school board district and now would be in a new school board district. The second change is that there were 2 Logan precincts where those children go to county schools, but they've not been assigned to a county school board district. And so they've now been assigned to the nearest district. And those are the only changes, and you do need to approve boundaries.
So do we need to extend this, or do we just need to make a motion and approve it?
Yeah.
Will you remind me, you changed Hyde Park? I thought, in my mind, I thought we made 4 precincts in Hyde Park, or is there?
It's just 3. There was 2 previous, and then we added a 3rd one.
Okay, I was worried that one got left off, but.
No, you're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
Somebody
Well,
had a question?
I would waive the rules and make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-02, resolution updating the Cache County Board of Education districts, understanding this is really just a formality.
I'll second that, especially because they need it done by next week, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, there's been a motion made to waive the rules, and it's been seconded that we.
I have one question. Those
yes.
2 blocks, those little blocks that you're talking about, those couple of changes, everyone on those blocks, they are all aware of this?
We are required to notify them, and then that's what we're doing.
So is it gonna be shock and awe? Are they gonna have to take their kids out of one school and send them to another?
No school
So-
boundaries were changed, it's just
Okay,
school
they're
board
aware
districts.
of it then. They're aware where they,
Probably
they're
not
aware where they are supposed to be right now.
Correct.
And it's just a matter of this legalizes everything. Because I think Cache County School District's thinking about a school bond here this spring or something. And so
I
they
don't
need to
know,
have
to my
all this
knowledge.
stuff set up, I believe.
Yeah, so it's not school boundaries itself, it's just the school board members,
Okay.
districts.
Thank you.
They'll get that notice on their ballot, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Been a motion made and seconded to waive the rules and approve a resolution to approve Resolution 2022-02. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, let's go to item F. This is a discussion on the council meeting time. Gina asked that this be put on the agenda, so I'm going to let her preface it before, for the discussion. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for putting this on the agenda. I had a constituent ask me if the council would consider changing their meeting time, and I know it was just one constituent, but I thought it was an appropriate thing to ask. His concern was that having it at 5 o'clock, it's hard to get here, even for a 5:30 public hearing, getting off work, wanting to run home and change clothes, grab something to eat. And so I was wondering if the council would consider perhaps changing our meeting time a half hour later to 5:30 and/or moving our public hearings to 6 o'clock to better accommodate the public.
I haven't heard, that's the first comment I've ever heard
anything.
about somebody
I would think,
changing time.
my comment to Madam Chair would be that let's keep it at 5 o'clock and just have our public hearings later.
Yeah.
Move our public hearings to 6 o'clock?
okay.
I mean, if that's a concern, and if we are making it so that people can't attend, and they have to take up work to come, let's just make them later, but I don't want to start any later.
I'm agreeable with that, Gordon.
Heck, if we started
You gotta be
earlier, that'd
8:15
fine with
already.
me.
Start at 4:30.
So the discussion is to, yes, Dave.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit, I don't know whether we want to, has anyone else been approached by, I have never been approached by any changes. So I hate to do a little knee jerk with
Just 'cause of
one,
one.
just one
Over the years,
constituent.
I've heard it before from people wondering why we meet so early. Perhaps they're used to city councils. A lot of city councils meet at 7. Although
Same time,
commissions
But
meet at.
if we're gonna do the public hearings later, then we better, let's change our agenda so we get more done up front then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really move through that so that we don't just make it another half hour later,
Well, if you're interested in doing it, we can put a written proposal together. I think we might need to change our ordinance. I gotta look. So it might be in writing that we have public hearing at 5:30. Do you remember, Janine? No, we just do it that way.
The only thing I knew about public hearings is if it's a budget, it has to be at 6.
Right, because that's when people will be able to get there, which, that was kind of my thinking on.
But if we move for one, I mean, we got planning and zoning at 5:30 and everything else, does this just domino pushing it back? So
My thoughts exactly,
That's a
Nolan.
fair
If we
question.
look at one, then what other requests are we going to get to try?
I mean, most of us here, I'm working, so I get off work to come here by 5, so, I know Paul does, and 3:45, so.
3:30.
I'm resistant to change.
I second that as well.
Nolan's the wise man here.
Yeah, there we go, done.
Okay, so it sounds like, no, just leave everything as it is, including the public hearing time.
I mean, we heard, we listened, and we don't want to dismiss that constituent, but at the same time, I think there needs to be more thought or discussion as to how others think about that, because
Well,
that would really impact P and Z and a Board of Adjustments, anything that way.
You know, if you've got a constituent who really can't get here for a public hearing that they have a really vested interest in, then I think they could be approached, the chair could be approached and have them put last on the public hearings that we have and things like that, so that it starts late enough that they could get here.
Well, the other thing we gotta look at is staff who is here from the county to support us on these meetings. We'd really affect them pretty heavy.
You guys want to stay longer? Oh, that's a new bet.
Excited.
You can tell Matt wasn't paying attention. He just answered yes.
Matt thought we were raising his salary, and he's back there just a dot.
All right.
Thank you, council.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, other business. County Day on
We
the,
forgot G,
oh,
appointments.
Where's G?
We moved the,
12F.
The goals.
12F,
no, we moved the
board member
appointments and
assignment.
assignments.
That's
from
12F.
5C that we have.
Assignments and goals.
but I thought we moved that to 12.
I think our assignments was the first of the agenda.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry, I wrote it in the wrong place.
Yeah,
I was trying to be helpful and I wasn't helpful.
Madam Chair, before you move out of the ordinances portion, could I just make a kind of a point of order or whatever?
Thank you.
The salary vote that you took tonight was done up here in the form of a motion, but just want to make the public record clear that it was an ordinance.
Okay.
And so the motion that passed would be interpreted as a motion to amend the ordinance as per the motion made. We've gone ahead and prepared a new copy of the ordinance that reflects that as an amendment, and that is an ordinance. And you'll note on that ordinance that you received the draft of, that as we talked about this in some meeting toward the end of last year, but that our Organic Act calls for having the executive sign his approval or disapproval or decline to sign county ordinances. And so to conform with our Organic Act, at the beginning of the year here, we're putting that additional signature block on the ordinances.
Okay, so we're drawing
Telling
up,
us we gotta start all over? Is
No,
that what we're
no.
we're drawing up a new ordinance, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay,
because
very
what
good.
you did tonight will appear in the code.
Okay,
and it
thank
is
you.
an ordinance.
Thank you.
Not just a
Appreciate that.
Started
All
over.
right, are we ready to move on?
Notice it again.
Okay.
Keep it going.
County Day on the Hill, Wednesday, February 23rd. UAC Building Utah Conference, Wednesday through Friday, March 23rd through the 25th. That will be held at the Carbon County Event Center. Do we need to let you know about any of these, Janine? And okay. Then the UAC Management Conference is Tuesday through Thursday, April 26th through the 28th at the Ogden Eccles Conference Center. All right, and let Janine know if you're interested in going. Okay, review of 2021 council members' goals. So, let's go back to, and looks like Paul, your first on the list after Executive Zook. So, anything you want to add or talk about on your goals?
So, 2 seconds to get to that.
And while we're talking, let's put our 2022 goals. Okay?
Okay. I still need to ride along with the sheriff deputy.
Okay.
The only thing I'd adjust, county general plan is work more proactively. I kind of mentioned that before. I mean, the general plan's out there a bit. I'd love to see us be able to do more, to adjust that on the fly, because we need to be able to do more rather than just wait for that. And then getting information to the public more efficiently, I would just say, I think this body has done a fantastic job during COVID. I highly commend our health department in what they've done, and I'm been working on that report as to what learnings we have. So I'll get that out this year, but I just want to commend everybody, and how we've handled it in Cache County has been commendable.
I agree. Okay. Anything you want to add for 2022?
No, I like 3 things.
Okay,
I don't
very
wanna-
good.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, David Erickson, would you like to give us a report or and add anything?
You know, one of my goals was that the general plan gets solidified, but it's jello
Mm-hmm.
right now. Guess we're still working on that one. The drainage districts, they are all organized, and that work is underway, right, Matt? As far as all of the mapping of it, and we're getting that finished. So they'll have total taxation authority to do what they independently need to do. We did not kill COVID, but we can keep shooting at it, okay? I know the policies that we've talked about with fire EMS, that is still work in progress, but we have come a long ways with that. I know Chief Hammer's done extremely well, and I think that there is is working better and better every day. Davenport Road.
Might as well just,
That's becoming a blistered.
That's been my goal too.
I know, but we need to make some big decisions on it. And I'm still doing another ride-along with the county deputies. You're in the back, though, with the cuffs on.
That's
I'll
what
be
I'm
in the
thinking.
front.
One of these ride-alongs is gonna end terribly for one of us.
I want a picture.
Anyway, my new goal, or these new goals is to solidify the agreements, and that is well underway. Executive Zook's worked on that, with the, that National Guard issue, properties and all that stuff. I think that's terrific. I would like to research and implement possibly look into a compliance officer that, I have time and time for the past umpteen years have I heard of all of these issues that's going out there. We need someone that can go out and do enforcement on people that aren't doing what they should be doing. And so I think we need to look and dig into that a lot more, to make sure our ordinances, the requirements that we put in those, that they are fulfilled. As like tonight, we have the list of, things that they're supposed to get done, make sure that things are done right. I want to increase awareness and apply options to secure our open space at the costs of those that enjoy them. I will fight tooth and nail against anyone that is going to throw or outzone people or burden the cost of open space on landowners. Here. I will not go over my book. So anything that we draft and look at, if the public wants it as a whole, we need to pay for it as a whole. So solidify an alcohol policy on county properties, and I think that's also in the works, Chris. I believe we're working toward that, right?
You want my comments or?
No, just, that's one of my goals, and we'll work through it. And then and this is a never-ending thing, is to make the RU2, RU5 digestible and not so problematic, or do away with it, or I don't know. It's a tough thing to I'd like to get us a grasp on that. The other thing I would like to see the following from finance. Any financial transfer or correction needs to go through us on the council, any. And it, not just in-house. In education, I'd like some education on who's watching who within finance and that flow chart of responsibility, specifics. I would like to have a better education for all of us as a council, so that we, as we watch over this, we need to make sure that what is supposed to happen with our money happens the right way. We need to build public confidence in the county government, which I think has been lost to a great extent with a lot of people because of interrupted services. And but they are getting better. Help all county employees. I want to make sure that they can speak freely to county council of their concerns and needed changes.
Very
That's
good.
a few more than 3, but that's my
awesome.
thoughts.
Thanks, Dave.
And that was at 3 o'clock this morning. So,
Couldn't sleep.
I couldn't sleep.
Okay. All right, Gina.
Okay, last year I had getting the county general plan done and wanting to make sure that got complete. And they're still working on that. It's still a goal. And, no pressure. He's not even looking at Pear Smart. Second, trying to look for more efficient ways to operate all departments to better serve the people of the county. I would like to keep working on that. Being chair was a lot more focus on that than what I initially thought it would be, and so that didn't get done to my satisfaction. Work to keep taxes as low as possible. We accomplished that. We didn't raise taxes this year, and I'm excited for the council that we worked toward that, and we're able to find money to meet our budget without raising taxes. Davenport Road, still going, but maybe if we all keep it on our goal list, it'll get done. And then I don't remember talking about number 5, the family place, and it's not in the minutes, so it's possibly a senior moment, but I can't think of what that is. So let me tell you about.
You're too young to have senior moments.
Oh, I have them. But thank you for the nice compliment. So again, want to see that general plan finished. I think it will give us a lot of insight in how to move forward with the issues that the county is facing, and so I think it's important. And I know that they're working hard on it, and I appreciate all the work that they're doing. I don't want it to sound like a complaint. I know it's a really in-depth process, and I appreciate their work. Some of the other things is making sure we get that agricultural advisory board and the protection board up and running, and we're working on that, and I've been working with other council members on that. I'd like to see, since we have to reappoint the cemetery districts. I'm not sure if we have other special districts to reappoint, but I would love the county to do some training for those folks, and would ask for help from the attorney's office in that. And then maybe the council chair could help, kind of give them a lowdown on how to run their meetings or whatever. I think they would love any help on what they're supposed to do and make sure that they understand open meetings and when they have their budget meeting and stuff like that. So I want to give them confidence.
LeGrand Bitter,
Yeah.
who's over special districts for the state, he will come up and he's happy to do the training.
Oh, great.
Cool.
He came up and he did the drainage districts out there.
What's his last name, Dave?
LeGrand Bitter.
Bitter.
Bitter with a B?
He's a happy man for being a bitter man.
Okay.
I just think that'd be a good thing for us to help them out. They look to us for guidance, so.
What 2 boards were that, Gina?
Well,
Cemetery?
cemetery boards and any other special districts that we have. Another thing that I'm working on, that's a goal, is, and I'm not quite sure how to give a description, figuring out our county committees. It's been kind of confusing who appoints who to what, and which ones need appointing, which ones don't. What are their authority and purpose? So I've been working with Taylor in the attorney's office, and he's helping me with that so that My goal is to get a list together that we can all look at and all feel like we're on the same page, and even if we publish their agenda, we can put on there what the goal or authority of that committee is so that we all understand. County code updates as well. I'm excited that we get to do that. I know the council had looked at that for a while, and we finally said, hey, we've got to get another attorney in there to help with that. So I'm really glad we did that. Keep taxes low, still a goal, always a goal. Working with the sheriff's office to see if we can get some animal control laws uniform throughout the county rather than having a hodgepodge of things. And don't know how well that will go, if that can be worked out, but we're going to take a look at that. And then lastly, I want to look into have the council having a policy advisor / council assistant. When I was chair, I could see the need for that, someone to help us coordinate, to get us information and that type of thing. And so I'd love to have that discussion with the council and see if that's feasible and workable. So those would be my goals.
Are you saying party planner on that last part?
Yeah, we could, yeah.
See, you don't have to do it.
Sitting right.
Perfect. I'm voting for Paul.
Yeah. Well, that's how I'm gonna get his support on this, is he'll be the party planner,
All
and you
the
won't
way.
have to do it.
If we don't get one, it's all Chuck E. Cheese from here on out. All Chuck E. Cheese. Give you a cup of tokens and some.
Councilmember Worthen, the one that you can't remember, the RC squared, that stands for Resilience Through Caring Connections. That's the name of that group. And the head of our victim services, Tara Warner, came and spoke to the council about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and being trauma informed. And after that presentation, you mentioned that you wanted to learn more about that, about being trauma informed. And that group, the RC Squared group, is a group that works on that. So that's why at some point you mentioned that you wanted to be part of that group or visit that group to learn more about being trauma informed.
Thank you for reminding me, because I completely forgot about that. I remember the ACEs and looking at that, so thank you, appreciate that.
All right. I had 3 goals set up at least quarterly meetings with boards that I'm on. I did maybe half of that, and I need to work. I'm going to keep that as a goal so I can keep that on. Become more involved with the county budget. I was able to work a little bit more closely with the county budget, but there's still a lot that I need to know and do, so I'm going to continue with that. And one that I completely failed on was to learn more about the county planning and zoning and how it works. And I would like to work with Chris and Tim, whoever, I need to work with so I can be more efficient with that. A lot of these hearings that we have with planning and zoning, I have to really study a little bit more and go with that. Some other goals I'd like to add to is to be more involved with learning what I need to do and to keep up on top of things and attend all those meetings and to serve the community as I feel like I should serve them, to make time for them, to listen to them, and be the best that I can be as a council chair. All right.
You will be great.
Thank you. Carl.
Just to move things along, basically, except for the Davenport Road issue, I think I was able to accomplish most everything else. Going forward, I'd like to evaluate more carefully and thoroughly the needs of the recorder's office and the clerk's office, and be able to understand really what it is they need and understand. I want to do a deputy ride-along as well.
There's room for 2 in the back with handcuffs.
Yep.
I still want pictures.
And then I would really like to make sure that we don't have another tax increase again this year, that it's another year without a tax increase. And Davenport Road. John, we're all looking at you.
John, I don't
No
have that on my list, so I can cross everything off by the time we get to the end of this year.
That's all, Barbara.
Thank you. Nolan?
We may come with some budget requests.
Thanks to Chris and the development office and getting iPads to the planning and zoning people. I personally think that we don't acknowledge our planning and zoning members enough. And I don't know how we do that, but I think that should be something we do. I mean, we talk about our pay sucking, their pay sucks, so.
15 bucks.
Yeah.
Wow.
A meeting?
Per meeting? Yeah.
We need to increase that.
Nope. So
Thank you. I'd like
something to recognize these guys. They do a great service and they are challenged. And I'll tell you one of the things that I hate, and that is CUPs. We bring one up and we bring the public in and we just slap the public by the face and say, we're not going to listen to you. That is a bone of contention, and that is something that I think all council members have to deal with when there's something going on. I don't know how you change that, but that's something.
Eliminate them.
I hate them, so it just causes frustration in the public.
Because they're executive and not legislative, and their comments can't be taken into consideration.
Exactly, but we still say come to it, and then, I mean, you listen to those poor P&Z guys, and I've been there, Dave's been there, some of the others have been there. It's just something there, so I'm glad I've talked to Chris about better notification if there's something going on in your neighborhood. We just did 300 feet. I don't like that, so Chris is working on a sign or something. Is that still in the process?
That's correct.
So hopefully we get our public more informed on what's going on in our neighborhood.
Could I interject there that those are things that could be changed in code if you don't like a particular CUP? Let us know, we could draft an ordinance to.
I think it's something to discuss
and we do
because
that with.
I don't know what the rest of the council members think, but
Is that something that would actually come from P&Z then? Or do we need to?
When it's a land use regulation, it would go through them first.
First,
They'd have
yeah.
a
Okay.
hearing, and then you'd make the ultimate decision because it's a code change.
you know, one of the best things that happened to me when I was on the P&Z is when we met with the P&Z and the council and had a discussion, and the camaraderie or the discussion and get everybody's ideas. I thought that helped a lot, and I would mention that maybe we entertain that something down the road.
Do you want to do, would that be something you'd be interested in quarterly, monthly? How do you feel?
Once a year.
I think once a year.
Once a year, okay.
Because, well, for instance, Paul's point about the county and the public and the growth and housing, I agree. But P&Z is sitting there, and you open that up, and then here comes people saying, I'm concerned about water, and yet as a county, we can't do a frickin' thing about water. But yet it is an important part, and we've talked to John Lucy about that, so I think that's something we evolve more in the county, both in the council and the P&Z, about how we talk about those things. And I'm in line with Dave when we talk about open spaces, and I know there's a meeting coming up, and I know we've got the master plan. But I don't want, it's kind of like saying robbing the bank was legal until now because I just robbed it and I got what I want. So saying protection and open space at the cost of the guy who owns the ground now is not the right plan, because we got to be careful of that. And we got to be careful about water. I mean, Wellsville is looking at a huge 130 home deal going in the canyon, and Wellsville's sitting there saying, we got water issues. We heard about water issues this last year. So I know the state legislature is saying water is a big thing. I think as a county, we need to be saying water is a big thing. Huge issue, both, for what we need to look at.
And just, I think we should have that meeting, if we're doing it once a year, probably earlier
Bingo.
rather than later.
Especially with
because-
the master plan coming up and everything else.
Because anything, you see what I did tonight is voted in conjunction with P&Z, and I think I always have, but it'd be great to have that discussion, because you want to make sure that we're both on the same page, as we've always has been, but if we're seeing those pressures and they're seeing, everybody making sure that we're understanding the flow. So earlier rather than later on that meeting would be great. Sorry you didn't.
Nope, I appreciate that. And I'm with Dave, and I've talked about this before, the compliance officer. We come in and we do a CUP, or we say, these are the conditions. But once it passes through there, we're really not having anybody going out and checking those conditions. And then you put it on a neighbor to help enforce that, which just causes neighborhood trouble. So a compliant officer, somebody to say, will you go check that? Chris and his group has been very good to talk about that, but I think that's important. When I went to UAC, and I know others talked about it, and when I sat through the budget process, there were things that I didn't understand. I would like to see Audit take a more defined approach in what an audit is and how we get there, and somebody that helps the council in that audit because our duty is strictly on money, big time budget. So, and I'm a finance guy, so I want depth into that audit, and the finance is what I'm looking at. So I think we talked about that, heard some other counties that had some success and how they'd cut their costs and everything else that way. So something on that side. So I think that's it. If we can, and when you
Your
talk.
computer went blank, so.
And I know, so my mind will go blank too, so, well, it was blank, so. But those are the points I see, and I appreciate associating with you guys, so thank you.
Thank you, Nolan. Gordy?
Last the best of all the game, that's the way it was all the time going through school, you know? I got school
So are you ready, Janine?
Sometimes I didn't. I got several things here. The Davenport Road, almost everybody's had that, and we're not, I can't say is that we haven't made progress. If you remember back when we decided to go ahead with John Luthi as our county attorney, one of the things that we decided that we wanted him in there was because he had civil knowledge, and at the same time, we gave him some more staff that he could do civil things. And now we've got, I can't remember her name, but the lady attorney that
Lisa Larson.
she is putting a lot of time in on that, and she has pretty well got all the knowledge that you can get out of reading about the Davenport Road. I think she's read about everything, but I also want us to proceed with that and make some effort. We spent about 8 years, and all we did is barely talked about it. We never did anything. So that's one of my things that I'll always ask John when I'm around him, how's the Davenport Road going? And he said, well, we can't talk about it in this setting, so somewhere along the line we got to do a lot more talking about it in whatever setting we can. So the other thing is you've brought up compliance officer. I also think that is an important thing. I think we're going to have to hire another individual to be a compliance officer and have him get all of the things that these developers and these builders and that are having to do in order to get the building permits. We need to have somebody that checks on that and see if it's being done, because I think we all are human nature that if we can get it approved and we really don't want to comply with it, nobody's pushing us, we probably won't comply with it. So I think a compliance officer is a good idea. Mentioned last year cluster development. I've had that in my mind for a lot of years, and we haven't really pursued it too much. And I'll commit myself that I'll spend some time with Chris and see if we can't come up with a cluster development. These two young ladies here, maybe they could use that cluster development in their building there in the Hiram area. That's something that would be an option, that if we had it on the books, we could do it.
Can I ask a question there? This goes to John or Chris. So if in the county we do cluster development and we go RU5 or RU2 and they put their houses there, and we leave open space and then they annex that into the city, can the city then change that and that open space is gone?
Yeah, it becomes the city's.
That becomes a concern.
It's something to discuss.
Can't tell the cities what.
Yeah, so that's why we're trying to listen to the cities.
The last thing I got here is to work with the road department to open the road and the right-of-way that is in the north end of Hiram. I think it's time, and I think it's important that we take that road that goes past the USU Dairy. We purchase the right-of-way to connect with the Hiram road there that runs past their sewage plant, so that we can get all of that Miller that Miller traffic, all those Miller big trucks and whatnot, out of the community and get them on a road that right now has only got the USU Dairy Home on. And I think that would be a real wise thing for us to do before we get a whole bunch of homes built along there and then we got problems. Yes, I'll commit with Matt, Executive Zook, that I'll try to get it in their mind that that's a priority, so when we do the money for roads and that we put that on as one of our projects, because when we pass that road tax, one of the major things that was to do was to procure right-of-ways, and I don't think we've bought a right-of-way yet with that money. It's all been to improve roads, and so anyway, Matt, I'll be calling you, and I want you to return my call, and I'll visit with Executive Zook on it, and let's see if we can get that on one of the priorities of our projects. Other than that, Barbara, I think we've done well, and I'm excited about you being the chairman, you know?
Thank you.
You seem to got a handle on it.
Thanks.
Good
Thanks.
going.
I need all your help. Do we want to, I know that Carl's on a time crunch, do we want to discuss the board and committee assignments tonight? Carl, what's your feeling on it?
Well, I think right at the beginning of the meeting, everybody commented they essentially wanted to stay with what they had.
Okay.
It's just you and I, maybe
Okay,
we
we'll
can commiserate.
There is
Okay,
one
very
thing,
good.
I think that shows me on the SPIDA board, and I'm not on that board anymore, and I
Okay.
don't remember who was supposed to take my place. Somebody. Council Economic Development.
Oh.
The Cache County Economic Development Advisory Board?
I'm
No,
on
that's,
that.
okay.
Anyway, maybe I was looking at an older one.
Oh, here it is, down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Madam Chair, I suggest that now that we've all got a copy of this, that we give us a couple of weeks to digest it, and then let's have it right at the first of the agenda on our next one.
Okay.
And if there's any discussion that we need to make, we can do it.
All right, very good. Thank you. Do we have, we'll go ahead with council member reports. I do have one question. We've just set these goals, and to be quite honest, I don't think I even think about these until now when we look at them again. Would it help if we sent these out quarterly to everyone, and then they could take a look at those and then try to get themselves back as a reminder? Okay, I'll make that as one of my goals to send that out. All right, Dave, do you have any council member report?
I was just wondering, I'd written down there, who from the county represents us on the interview of the deputy executive? Who on the council is representing that in the interview process?
On the last one, we had two council members.
We had the chair and the vice chair, me and you.
There hasn't been anyone yet.
Well, no, there hasn't been, but you've already interviewed twice?
Yes.
Okay. And then,
Have somebody, Dave?
NACO, I was supposed to go back to NACO, but I can't, on the Ag and Rural Affairs Board, but I'm not able to go this year, so. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Gordy?
I've already said too much today.
Nolan?
I think I brought my points up in my goals and that, so I'm good.
Thank you.
I'm
Paul?
following Gordon's example.
Okay, Carl?
Nothing. Oh.
Gina?
I have 3 things real quick. Wanted to let the council know, Budget Committee, we were talking about ARPA funds, and now we can have $10 million basically unrestricted, and which is amazing, but I still worry about that. I know, Paul was like, no. Anyway, Executive Zook has sent out an email, or is going to send out an email, probably already did it, asking the department heads for more suggestions of what they think would be good for that, since we've got some unrestricted money. So just wanted you guys to know that that's in the works, and that we need to get that figured out soon. Legislature, I know we've had some talk about what each of us is doing in the legislature. It's great that Cache is, I think, punching above its weight for our county. Some of the things that I've been working on behind the scenes with UAC are things that, well, we have some that say, yeah, we're getting this done. Sometimes getting stuff done is saying, no, we don't want that. And one of the issues that we're seeing in the legislature this year is the state really wanting to tell the counties what to do and forgetting about our local authority and how important that is. So I was in some discussions today with the governor's staff, letting them know that we want local control over zoning, and that planning's important. And so we're working on some of those issues behind the scenes. So hopefully you'll never see these bills come to light, but so we're working on that. And then I had a quick question, John, about the roll call vote. Is that something that we need to be doing all the time? I know when I was chair, I was aware that that's what it called for. I know the Salt Lake County Council, every vote they do is by roll call because that's what their code requires. And so my question is that something we should be doing all the time? And if not, who can actually call for a roll call vote? Does it need to be a member of the council?
I can look into that. I remember recently reading that, and I chose not to bring it to your attention and say there needs to be a roll call vote, because I think you can look at it more than one way. The purpose of a roll call vote is for there to be a record for the public to know who voted, which way, and I think that with a recording and so many of your votes are unanimous, I mean, that if you're, especially if you're here at the meeting, it's clear who voted which way. I think technically speaking, a roll call vote though is you go down the line and each person casts their vote, and then the record is even more clear.
Is that
so as we
waive the rules kind of thing? Like we waive the rules on, some of those things. Is that something we can waive the rules on? Or is it something that we have to do or should be doing?
I'll need to look at that, and it's, yeah, I don't remember. My guess is that there are, that it depends on what you're voting on as to whether the roll call vote is required.
Like ordinances, I think it's required for.
Does that roll call only stand to the council, or does that drift into the planning and zoning and everything else, if it's a land use thing?
I do not know. I'll have to look at that.
Okay.
Okay, I have nothing to report, so if there's no other comment, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Ally, we